Chapter 4059. Inside the Heaven Refining Array. The three Supremes' faces were filled with anger. The faction they belonged to was extremely powerful. They had paid a huge price to obtain this battleship. The world gap was too dangerous. Even Supremes had to be submissive and not be rash. They could use the battleship to travel through the world gap at will. Apart from the extremely dangerous places, the battleship could reach them. However, it was very difficult to determine one's location in the world gap unless one had the coordinates of a certain location. Due to a mistake a few years ago, they lost their coordinates and got lost in the world gap. They had been traveling in the battleship, hoping that one day, they would encounter a region with living beings. After going through so much trouble, they finally discovered the Chaos Realm. How could they miss such an opportunity? They quickly broke through the realm wall. However, when they crossed the realm wall and entered the Chaos Realm, they realized that the barbaric natives here were actually using an array formation to obstruct them. They were simply courting death. Courting death. The grey-robed man's expression was gloomy. He narrowed his eyes and there was a snake head mark on his forehead. The moment the snake head mark appeared, the entire Heaven Refining Array was filled with a terrifying cold aura. At the same time, a snake head mark also appeared on the forehead of the purple-robed man beside him. Although the other person didn't have a snake head mark on his forehead, there were snake patterns on his body, giving off a terrifying feeling. Oh! Fang Chen, who was controlling the array formation, frowned slightly as he sensed a terrifying cold aura. At the same time, he saw the snake head marks on the grey-robed man and the purple-robed man's foreheads, as well as the snake patterns on the last person's body. Where did they come from? The snake head imprint gave Fang Chen a bone-chilling feeling. He was quickly calculating how he could deal with the three supreme beings. Boom! Just as he was thinking, the man covered in snake patterns leaped and crossed the Heaven Refining Array. He arrived at a certain array base and clenched his fists before throwing a punch. Suddenly, in the primal chaos battlefield, the earth quaked and the mountains shook. A terrifying power burst forth like a flood. The one guarding the array base was a fisherman. Fart. Without any room to react, the fisherman's body was sent flying. He spat out blood and his face was pale. He was on the verge of death. However, even so, the fisherman still insisted on controlling the array base. How dare a weak ant block me? The snake-tattooed man disdainfully threw out another punch. However, this time, Fang Chen made a move. He used the Heaven Refining formation to change space. His body changed rapidly. Sometimes he would appear in front of the snake-tattooed man, and sometimes he would appear behind him. For a moment, the snake-tattooed man was unable to track down Fang Chen. Rumble. Fang Chen punched out again and again, but the refining heaven array offset a small part of the power. The remaining power was forcibly resisted by Fang Chen. Wang. The 10,000 strands of ultimate strength in his body burst out like a flood. Not only did it block the power of the snake-tattooed man's fist, it even forced him back. The snake-tattooed man's expression changed when he felt the power of the ultimate power. He instantly retreated to the side of the purple-robed man and the grey-robed man. His body staggered. What happened? The two of them asked. The snake-tattooed man steadied himself and took a deep breath. He said in a low voice, although the person controlling the array has not stepped into the supremacy realm, he possesses a terrifying power. He was not in the supremacy realm, but he was stronger than the supremacy realm. This was Fang Chen's terrifying deterrence. In the history of the primordial world, there had never been a monstrous genius who had condensed 10,000 strands of ultimate strength. Fang Chen was the first. One had to know that the most monstrous genius before him had only condensed 9,999 strands of ultimate strength. Although it was only one strand, it was like an insurmountable gap. 10,000 strands of ultimate strength was a qualitative change. Boom! Fang Chen, who was in the 13th level Saint Realm, held a long sword in his hand and looked down at the three of them. His body emitted surging battle intent. This was the primordial world, his territory. He would not allow anyone to cause trouble here. Moreover, after experiencing the fierce battle with the Devouring Demon Clan and the battle with the Devouring Demon Clan's patriarch, Fang Chen's foundation was even more solid. His cultivation base had improved, and he was infinitely close to the supremacy realm. He could be said to be the strongest person below the supremacy realm. Although the snake-tattooed man was a supremacy realm expert, he had only just entered the supremacy realm. He had to resist the power of the refining heaven array while fighting against the most monstrous genius since ancient times. In a hurry, he was defeated. If I'm not wrong, this world should be a barren land. The martial arts civilization here is very backward. The person just now should be the strongest person in this world. The grey-robed man said in a low voice. The purple-robed man nodded and said, "Be careful. To be able to dominate this world as a Saint Realm expert, he must be extraordinary. Don't fail miserably." The snake-tattooed man nodded and attacked again. Rumble. The battle was on the verge of breaking out. Fang Chen went all out and directly displayed his strongest power, fighting fiercely with the snake-tattooed man. In the beginning, he still had the upper hand, but as the snake-tattooed man adapted to the battle environment, he began to suppress him. In the end, it was difficult for him to move. However, this stalemate lasted for a quarter of an hour, and then there was a change. During one of the attacks, Fang Chen found the snake-tattooed man's Achilles heel. It was at his abdomen, where the snake patterns were densest. Fang Chen pretended to attack, but in fact, when the snake-tattooed man was defending with all his strength, he directly turned around and quietly appeared behind the snake-tattooed man. When the snake-tattooed man reacted and turned around abruptly, Fang Chen was already prepared and stabbed his sword into the snake-tattooed man's abdomen. Ah! A miserable scream came from his mouth. The power of the long sword penetrated the snake-tattooed man's abdomen and directly crushed the surrounding snake patterns. The next moment, one could clearly see that a terrible black mist emerged from the snake-tattooed man's abdomen, and he fell to the ground in pain. Bang! Fang Chen struck out with his palm and hit his head, sending him flying. Boom! The latter's body fell heavily to the ground and directly fell unconscious. Not good. Seeing this, the grey-robed man and the purple-robed man screamed. One of them protected the snake-tattooed man, while the other activated the snakehead mark and attacked Fang Chen. Swoosh! The snakehead mark released beams of laser light, as if it could cut the world apart. Fang Chen did not meet force with force. Instead, he used the refining heaven array to constantly move his body, and finally withdrew from the refining heaven array. Whoosh! Fang Chen's forehead was full of sweat. This was the first time he really fought against a supreme being expert. The snake-tattooed man was obviously not as strong as the two with the snakehead mark. Moreover, he underestimated his opponent and was extremely disdainful of him, which gave him the opportunity to attack. However, Fang Chen's expression was extremely solemn, because he knew that there would be a tough battle ahead. Chapter 4060. Although the three supremes were at the same realm, the snake-tattooed man's strength was clearly weaker than the other two snake-headed men. Defeating the snake-tattooed man didn't make them have any intention of retreating. Instead, they completely infuriated the snake-headed man. The grey-robed man and the purple-robed man looked at each other. Immediately, they attacked together. The snake-head imprint on their foreheads emitted beams of powerful light that seemed to be able to cut through the world. Even the refining heaven array, which had an extremely strong defense, was cut open. Fortunately, Fang Chen repaired the gap as quickly as possible. At that moment, Fang Chen stood outside the heaven refining array, quickly thinking about how to deal with it. The heaven refining array could greatly suppress the strength of the two supremes, but it could only be used as a support. If he wanted to defeat them, he could only rely on himself. In a head-on battle, he was definitely no match for them. Rumble. A deafening sound resounded through the sky. Just as Fang Chen was pondering, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the heaven refining array. The ground shook, and no one could hold on any longer. The fisherman spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale, and he was on the verge of collapsing. At this critical moment, Fang Chen couldn't care less. He directly jumped into the heaven refining array and faced the two of them head-on. Kill. The purple-robed man smiled disdainfully. A mere saint-stage warrior dared to challenge them. He was simply courting death. This world is really too weak. It's the weakest world I've ever seen. The strongest expert doesn't even have a supremacy. One had to know that in the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao, there were supremes in every world. In fact, supremes died in the world gap all the time. It's over. The two supremes attacked together. Fang Chen couldn't dodge. He gritted his teeth and guided the ultimate power to surround the two of them before exploding. Rumble. The ultimate power was incomparably vast. It was the purest power in the world. It was extremely powerful. When it self-destructed, the power was too strong. The two supremes were caught off guard and were blasted to the ground. Their bodies were covered in blood, and their internal organs were damaged. Their combat strength decreased sharply. Lunatic, he's simply a lunatic. TMPH, you'll die even if you do that. The two coldly snorted and quickly stood up. Although their combat strength had been greatly reduced, detonating their ultimate strength was no different from playing with fire. It wouldn't be long before he died. Poochie. After exploding 100 strands of his ultimate strength, Fang Chen spat out a mouthful of blood. He thought that his source would be injured, but what happened next left Fang Chen utterly shocked. Because the missing 100 wisps of ultimate force were separated from the rest of the ultimate force and quickly reformed. In just a breath's time, the number of ultimate force increased to 10,000 again. This, Fang Chen felt like he was dreaming. This was ultimate power. Since when was it so easy to condense ultimate power? Could it be because he had condensed 10,000 strands of ultimate force and broke the historical record, resulting in a qualitative leap that allowed him to quickly condense the missing ultimate power? He wanted to test out his speculation. This time, he unleashed 500 streams of his ultimate force and detonated them in front of the two Nine Heavens Supremes. The force of the explosion skyrocketed, tearing the clothes of the two Nine Heavens Supremes into pieces. Luckily, they had the flesh of the Nine Heavens Supremes, allowing them to survive. Otherwise, they would have been blasted into pieces. Cough cough. The two fell to the ground and coughed out blood. There was a trace of horror in their eyes. Do you want to perish together? The two quickly retreated. They knew that Fang Chen had gone mad and they couldn't give him the chance to perish together. However, they would never have thought that Fang Chen would continue to test his guess again and again. 500 strands, 1,000 strands, 2,000 strands, 3,000 strands. The final explosion directly reached 5,000 strands. Boom. This explosion had seriously injured the two Supremes. They had lost their fighting strength and fell limply to the ground, unable to move. Their eyes were filled with fear. They couldn't believe how a Sage Realm martial artist had done it. However, Fang Chen didn't play with fire like they had imagined. On the contrary, his aura weakened at the moment of the explosion. Then, he quickly recovered and became stronger. It was unbelievable. Buzz. At this time, Fang Chen was very excited. He was forced into a desperate situation and he didn't expect to discover the mystery of ultimate power. However, after his experiment, the number of ultimate power explosion was at most 5,000 strands, which was half. Otherwise, he would really die. The more ultimate power exploded, the slower the speed of condensation. However, it was worth it to be able to seriously injure the two Supremes. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Fang Chen sat cross-legged and began to heal. The ultimate power in his body rapidly condensed. In the blink of an eye, 10,000 strands of ultimate power reappeared and his injuries were completely healed. He slowly got up and walked to the two Supremes. Are you a demon? The purple-robed man finally couldn't help but ask. How could this be? Your power self-detonated and injured us, but you are safe and sound. The grey-robed man couldn't understand. This was against nature and it was impossible. However, they saw it with their own eyes today. It was too terrifying. Who are you? The snake-tattooed man who was defeated before asked in a trembling voice. You seem to have forgotten your identity. Fang Chen stood with his hands behind his back and said coldly, from now on, you are captives of my chaotic realm. After hearing the word captives, the three of them were dejected and their hearts were full of grievances. However, they had no combat strength and couldn't resist. Kid, do you know who we are? After struggling for a moment, the purple-robed man said in a deep voice, Your realm is very weak. The strongest person is not even a supremes. I advise you to let us go. Otherwise, you will be in big trouble and die. That's right. The force behind us is not something you can provoke. If you let us go, from now on, we will have nothing to do with each other. You can continue to be a local tyrant here without any worries, the grey-robed man also said. In response, Fang Chen smiled contemptuously. When they entered the chaotic realm, they had completely cut off all contact with the outside world. Even the warship had been sealed by Fang Chen's heaven-defying means. Yet, they still dared to negotiate terms here. If he let them go, it would bring a huge disaster to the chaotic realm. After all, if the powerhouses of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path knew about the original realm, they would go crazy. Therefore, no matter what, they had to die. Are these the last words you want to say? Fang Chen asked. Chapter 4061. Fang Chen had paid the price of exploding 5,000 strands of ultimate power to severely injure the three of them and seal the warship. This way, the chaotic realm would be completely sealed off and cut off from the outside world. However, Fang Chen didn't want the two of them to die like this. He wanted to get some useful information from them. After all, there were too many cultivators in the 3,000 realms. If news of the original realm leaked out, it would definitely bring them a bloody disaster. Therefore, the best strategy was to learn some information and then take countermeasures. Are these your last words? Fang Chen's face was gloomy and filled with cold murderous intent. He walked step by step toward the grey-robed man and the purple-robed man. The two of them seemed to feel Fang Chen's murderous intent. Their hearts trembled, and they were filled with fear. They kept retreating and even threatened Fang Chen with the power behind them. Boy, you can reach such a level at such a young age. In the future, you will definitely step into the supreme realm and stand on the highest stage of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. I hope you don't make a mistake. Yes, we were just passing by and accidentally broke into your territory. As long as you let us go, we will never invade your territory again. Fang Chen shook his head. Obviously, only the dead could keep secrets. You, the power behind us is not something you can provoke. Think carefully. Yes, we are from the White Emperor Palace, the most powerful force in the White Cloud realm. If you kill us, it will bring a devastating disaster to your realm. Hearing this, Fang Chen was stunned for a moment. Then, he looked at the two of them again. The person who broke into the chaotic realm was from the Scarlet Cloud realm. Now, these two were from the White Cloud realm. They both belonged to the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. The White Cloud realm, the White Emperor Palace. Seeing the hesitation on Fang Chen's face, the purple-robed man was secretly delighted. He thought that Fang Chen was a little scared. He continued, yes, you may not know the power of the White Emperor Palace, but I can tell you without exaggeration that the White Cloud realm is considered a top realm in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. The strongest cultivator, the White Emperor, was an unparalleled supreme realm cultivator 1,000,000 years ago. Now, he can destroy all life with a thought. If you let us go, the White Emperor Palace will owe you a favor, the grey-robed man said. Countless experts coveted the favor of the White Emperor Palace. Why should I believe your words? Fang Chen was not in a hurry. He looked at the two of them playfully and asked, You. With a thought, a white crescent moon mark appeared on the purple-robed man's forehead. This is the white moon mark of an expert from the White Emperor Palace. The grey-robed man also released his own white moon imprint. Compared to the snakehead imprint, the white moon imprint vaguely contained an extremely terrifying power. So strong. Fang Chen could not help but sigh. Just a mark was enough to make him feel fear. One could imagine just how strong the White Emperor Palace was. Just how strong was the mysterious White Emperor of the White Cloud world. Then what was the snakehead mark from before? Even though he was a little shocked, Fang Chen remained calm and collected. After the two of them explained, Fang Chen finally understood. After the primordial world shattered, the entire world returned to chaos. After suffering a huge blow, it became a world gap. The 3,000 realms of the Great Tao existed in countless corners of the world gap. As the world gap was too dangerous, Ordinary people didn't dare to rashly enter it. This also caused the experts of the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao to almost never interact with each other. In this way, a type of interstellar merchant was born. Of course, with merchants, there were bandits. The snake head mark came from the famous Hydra organization in the World Gap. The experts in this organization had undergone strict training and had battleships that could travel freely in the World Gap. Of course, they had to pay a huge price. Although the grey-robed man and the purple-robed man were experts from the White Emperor Palace of the White Cloud Realm, their strength wasn't enough for them to survive in the World Gap. Therefore, they chose to join the Hydra organization and become its members. They accepted some missions and paid a sufficient price to obtain a battleship. They began to travel in the World Gap. The man with the snake head mark from before had a lower status than them. He was considered a beginner. As for them who had snake head marks, their status in the organization was rather high. The World Gap was so dangerous, so why did countless people want to take the risk? The answer was self-evident. The World Gap was formed after the primordial world collapsed. Countless opportunities were hidden in it. As long as one could obtain one of them, they could become the strongest or even the lord of a world. After stepping into the supremacy realm, it was almost impossible to improve further. Therefore, many people were willing to take the risk. I see. Fang Chen nodded. He didn't expect there to be such complicated matters in the World Gap outside the Chaos Realm. It was no wonder the predecessors of the Chaos Realm stepped into the World Gap one after another. Even the fiend-devouring clan's patriarch had entered. At their level, they only had a chance to break through in the World Gap. In order to pursue the peak of the martial Tao, they were willing to pay any price, even if they might lose their lives. As he gained a deeper understanding of the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao and the World Gap, Fang Chen began to understand the supremacies who entered the World Gap. They could also live in their own territories for the rest of their lives. However, many people didn't like a mediocre life. They would rather take risks. If Fang Chen had a choice, he would also choose to enter the World Gap. However, before that, he had to settle all the matters in the Chaos Realm. At the very least, he had to have no worries. At this stage, the Chaos Realm had just annexed the damaged Origin Realm and destroyed the fiend-devouring clan. The Heavenly Tao had been repaired, and the Chaos Realm was gradually recovering. It wouldn't be long before it became the Origin Realm that everyone in the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao envied. Of course, this required a process. After returning to reality, Fang Chen looked at the grey-robed man and the purple-robed man and continued interrogating them. However, he didn't obtain any important clues from the interrogation. He could only give up. How is it? Have you thought it through? As long as you let us go, I can give you whatever you want. The grey-robed man looked at Fang Chen and chuckled. Your world's martial Tao civilization is too backward. I can give you the cultivation mystic techniques of the White Cloud Realm to increase your overall strength. White Emperor Palace's mystic techniques weren't taught to outsiders. Even across the endless void, as long as they dared to teach others without permission, they wouldn't be able to escape White Emperor's grasp. However, they had many cultivation techniques from other factions in the White Cloud Realm. They were already strong enough for the Chaos Realm. I really want the cultivation techniques, but I don't want to let you go. What should I do? Fang Chen pursed his lips. What do you mean? The purple-robed man asked with a frown. Chapter 4062. The cultivation technique of the White Cloud Realm was a secret technique that could make even the Supreme Realm envious. Even Fang Chen was very tempted, but he would never joke about the lives of the people in the chaotic realm. This was his hometown, and his family, friends, and brothers were all here. Although the chaotic realm had swallowed the Source Realm and the Heavenly Tao was gradually becoming complete, it was still in the period of recovery, and its overall combat power was too weak to fight against forces like the White Cloud Realm. Therefore, no matter what, he would not let these people leave alive. Only the dead could keep secrets forever. What do you mean? The grey-robed man and the purple-robed man's faces were gloomy, and they were extremely angry. They were from the White Emperor Palace, and they were also interstellar bandits of the Hydra organization. With these two identities, most people would give them face, but the guy in front of them not only wanted to monopolize the cultivation technique of the White Cloud Realm, but also wanted to kill them. He was simply courting death. In fact, including the snake-tattooed man, the three of them seemed to be compromising on the surface, but in fact, they were stalling for time, secretly trying to communicate with the battleship trapped by the formation. As long as the battleship could rush out and return to their control, they would be in an invincible position and crush this realm. Don't waste your efforts. Although your battleship is strong, its core power is trapped by my formation, and you can't control it at all. Fang Chen squinted and smiled, as if he was mocking the three of them. Hearing this, the three of their faces suddenly changed, and they immediately stared at Fang Chen with burning eyes. What do you want? Fang Chen walked step by step in front of the three of them, stretched out his hand, and said, "Hand over the cultivation technique of the White Cloud Realm, and I can leave you a complete corpse. Don't even think about it." Boom. However, as soon as the purple-robed man finished speaking, Fang Chen blasted out a palm, and suddenly the two of them felt the earth tremble, and then there was a miserable cry, and the snake-tattooed man lost all signs of life. Third brother, the purple-robed man roared angrily, but it was useless. The snake-tattooed man was completely dead. The grey-robed man was also completely furious, almost crazy. He endured the injuries in his body and climbed up, wanting to fight to the death with Fang Chen, but the latter slapped him away. "Right now, you are not qualified to negotiate with me," Fang Chen said coldly. He did not hesitate to explode 5,000 rays of ultimate strength in order to severely injure the two of them. If he did not deal with them in time and let them recover, it would inevitably lead to a bloody storm. Therefore, before that, he planned to kill them after obtaining the White Cloud Realm's secret techniques. "In your dreams." The grey-robed man clenched his teeth and roared angrily as he charged toward Fang Chen. At the same time, he forcefully circulated the power within his body and detonated it as he neared Fang Chen. The self-destruction of an honorable was enough to destroy the entire Chaos Realm if it wasn't controlled. However, Fang Chen was already prepared. He directly activated the refining heaven formation and communicated with the power of the heavenly way, forcibly suppressing the explosive power of the grey-robed man. Even so, Fang Chen was still hit by the terrifying shockwave and smashed into the ground far away. Pain spread throughout his body. Fang Chen curled his lips and stood up, his face covered in dirt. Fortunately, he had the protection of his ultimate power, so he only suffered some superficial wounds. Fortunately, there is the refining heaven formation. Fang Chen looked at the devastated Chaos Realm battlefield and couldn't help but sigh. If it wasn't for the refining heaven formation left behind by the ancestors of the Chaos Realm, it would have been very difficult to survive this crisis. The refining heaven formation was said to be able to refine the heavens. Although honorables were strong, they were not above the heavenly way. Therefore, they were unable to break through the refining heaven formation. Of course, there was a more important reason. The three people from the White Cloud Realm were not good at array Dao and were unfamiliar with the refining heaven formation. They naturally couldn't break through it with just their strength. Crack. The grey-robed man tried his best but failed to severely injure Fang Chen. His life gradually disappeared as his body exploded into pieces of flesh. Watching his two brothers die in front of him, the purple-robed man felt extreme pain in his heart. He closed his eyes, unwilling to accept this. Even White Emperor Palace wouldn't know if they died in such a barren land. They would only think that they were lost in the world gap. This way, they would have died in vain. No one would avenge them. And the Hydra organization wouldn't look for them. This organization had always been very lax. It was relatively common for members of the organization to disappear. "I can't accept this." Before he died, the purple-robed man tried to use the battleship to send a message, but he failed. Fang Chen was swift and decisive as he killed him. Of course, before completely killing him, Fang Chen used the power of the heavenly way. As the realm lord, he forcefully restrained the grey-robed man's essence soul. Through his essence soul, he saw many cultivation techniques and secret techniques of the White Cloud Realm. Although some of them were incomplete and blurry, he couldn't see them clearly. However, those slightly lower-level cultivation methods were all clearly seen without missing a single word. White Emperor Palace won't let you off. The purple-robed man let out a final angry roar. His essence soul shattered and he died completely. Buzz. Fang Chen sat cross-legged. The essence soul in his mind was trembling. As he had just received a huge amount of information, he couldn't recover from it. Therefore, he hurriedly began to meditate. 7 days later, Fang Chen opened his eyes again. The cultivation techniques and secret techniques of the White Cloud realm that he had obtained from the purple-robed man's essence soul had been sorted out. Just by looking at a little, Fang Chen's heart was shaken. As expected of the cultivation techniques and secret techniques of the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao, they were far from what the chaotic realm could compare to. From this point alone, one could see to what extent the original realm had declined in the past. It had almost been destroyed. Fang Chen got up. His injuries had healed and he was in high spirits. After he finished dealing with the 3 corpses, he put their space rings into his bag. Then his gaze fell on the depths of the refining heaven formation, on the battleship that was sealed by the formation. After dealing with the 3 supremes, the crisis had not been completely resolved. There were still people on the battleship. He had to find a way to kill everyone on the battleship and take control of the battleship. Only then would the crisis be resolved. However, after facing the 3 Heaven Supremes on his own, Fang Chen was confident that he could defeat them. At this time on the battleship, the person controlling the battleship from White Emperor Palace was uneasy. The battleship was sealed and all communication signals with the outside world were cut off. He also couldn't contact the purple-robed man and the others. What's going on? Where have we mistakenly entered? The person controlling the battleship muttered to himself. Boom. However, at this moment, a deafening sound rang out. Then, a thought emerged and floated above the battleship. How dare you trespass into my territory? You are courting death. Fang Chen's thought issued a cold voice. Chapter 4063. Strictly speaking, the person controlling the battleship didn't belong to the Overlord faction of the White Emperor Palace in the White Cloud realm. This was because he was lost in the world gap and happened to encounter the purple-robed man and company when they passed by. After that, he became a captive and began to control the battleship to serve the purple-robed man and company. Now, he couldn't sense the auras of the purple-robed man and company. His expression changed drastically. He wanted to control the battleship to leave, but he heard a clap of thunder. Who is it? The person controlling the battleship raised his head and looked around, but he didn't discover anything. Swoosh. A phantom was projected on the battleship and looked at the person controlling the battleship. This is my territory. You are courting death by trespassing. Fang Chen's cold voice echoed in the battleship. Where are they? Asked the person controlling the battleship. Dead, said Fang Chen. Hearing this, the person controlling the battleship trembled and retreated. He tried to control the battleship to rush out of the seal, but he failed in the end. He looked at Fang Chen in fear. Even the purple-robed man and company weren't a match for this person. He didn't even have the courage to attack. I'll give you a chance to live, said Fang Chen. Speak, the person controlling the battleship hurriedly asked as if he had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. Be my servant and sign a master-servant contract with me. I can spare your life, said Fang Chen. In the beginning, he wanted to kill him, but on second thought, he might need this battleship in the future when he headed to the world gap. There was no harm in keeping this person alive. As long as his essence soul was controlled and he signed a master-servant contract, he wouldn't be able to snitch. The person controlling the battleship hesitated for a moment before finally agreeing. After all, compared to death, at least he could survive. Furthermore, Fang Chen's conditions were considered generous. Open your mind, said Fang Chen. He formed a seal with both hands as wisps of strange aura constantly emanated from his body. Finally, a wisp of ultimate power floated out and drilled into the mind of the person controlling the battleship. His primordial spirit was enveloped by the strange aura and ultimate power, forming a cocoon. Soon, his eyes became dull, and he lost his consciousness like a walking corpse. Next, Fang Chen began to brand his own mark. With the help of the ultimate power, The master-servant contract he had signed was even more binding. As long as the person controlling the battleship had the slightest bit of ill intent, they would explode and die. Wang. After everything was done, the person controlling the warship returned to normal. He knelt on one knee and respectfully bowed to Fang Chen. "Greetings, Master." Fang Chen nodded with satisfaction. "I don't care what you were called before. From now on, you'll be called a Da. Thanks, Master, for the name." There was no resistance at all. From the bottom of his heart, he recognized Fang Chen as his master and began to explain everything about the warship to him. 6 hours later, Fang Chen basically understood the basic information of the warship, as well as the conventional control methods. "Well, from now on, erase all the marks about the White Emperor Palace and the Hydra organization on the warship. If you need anything, just send me a message." After that, Fang Chen turned and left. The Chaos battlefield was safe for a short period of time because of the refining heaven array. While RDA was erasing the marks, he began to study the cultivation methods and secret arts he had obtained from the three supremes. The sacred land of the human race. Fang Chen copied all the cultivation methods and secret techniques onto a piece of paper and distributed them to the various experts. Lung Xian and the others showed a rare look of joy when they saw this. "Good, this is great." The reason why the development of the chaotic realm is lagging behind is that the cultivation methods and secret arts of the ancient civilization have disappeared, causing a gap in our cultivation methods. Now that we have these advanced cultivation methods and secret arts, I believe that it won't be long before the real supremes after the Dharma ending age appear in the chaotic realm. Da Zun was very excited. He immediately took a book to the end of the reincarnation road and began to study it seriously. Lung Xian and the other experts also chose cultivation methods and secret arts suitable for themselves and began to break through to the supremes. "Everyone, act according to your ability," Fang Chen exhorted. After all, these were the top cultivation methods and secret arts of the White Emperor Palace. Some of them were not suitable for the people of the chaotic realm to cultivate. If they forced themselves to cultivate them, the consequences would be unimaginable. After that, Fang Chen returned to the primordial chaos human race's holy land. He hurried his brothers and Star and Moon over and told them in detail what had happened on the chaos battlefield. He also told them to improve their strength as soon as possible. In the following time, the chaotic realm entered a period of peace. All the top experts were participating in the cultivation methods and secret arts. The heavenly path of the chaotic realm was becoming more and more perfect, and the spirit chi of heaven and earth was getting thicker and thicker. The aura of the 5 elements had been completely restored and even surpassed before. No matter how one looked at it, it gave people a feeling of prosperity. Everyone sighed. Perhaps, it wouldn't be long before they could see the true appearance of the original realm. Of course, under the calm, there were hidden undercurrents. They didn't forget the scene when they were almost wiped out by the devouring demons. Everyone was preparing for danger in times of peace, and everyone was striving to improve their strength. In a secret chamber in the holy land of the human race. Half a month later, Fang Chen comprehended a cultivation method and secret art. It was related to the primordial spirit. Long ago, his primordial spirit had already reached the limit of the Emperor realm and couldn't be improved any further. But after comprehending this secret art, he was enlightened. It turned out that the primordial spirit could be cultivated in this way. He changed his previous train of thought and felt enlightened. His entire person seemed to have been sublimated. In the meantime, the most shocking thing was the pure-blooded beast cub. This guy chose a demonic beast cultivation method, and after cultivating it for a period of time, its bloodline actually changed. Its blood gradually turned golden. This made everyone think of a possibility. The pure-blooded beast cub's bloodline seemed to have evolved into the royal bloodline. It was very likely to become the most powerful emperor in the history of the demon race. After learning this news, the 5 tyrants of Mount Cheong were unhappy. In the past, the 5 of them could join forces to trample on the pure-blooded beast cub. But now, the pure-blooded beast cub's bloodline had evolved. They were a little worried that it would surpass them. "Ch, we definitely can't let that guy surpass us." As the heaven-devouring divine rat, the little mouse took the lead in training. The ant queen, pangolin, seahorse, and the old faker were also in seclusion. A few months later, a DA sent a message to Fang Chen. All traces of White Emperor Palace and Hydra on the battleship had been erased. From this moment on, this battleship belonged only to Fang Chen. After receiving the news, Fang Chen went to the battleship immediately. Under Ada's guidance, he left his mark on the battleship. Wang. On the warship, there was a sword-shaped symbol. From now on, I'll call you Chaos Ship, said Fang Chen. Chapter 4064. The development of the Chaos Realm was moving in a very good direction. Everyone was cultivating step by step. Those top experts who had obtained the secret techniques of the White Cloud Realm were all cultivating in seclusion. After all, the Saint Realm and the Supreme Realm were two completely different levels. Countless Saint Realm martial artists dreamed of stepping into the Supreme Realm, and were even willing to give up their lives for it. In the blink of an eye, dozens of years had passed. During this period, the Chaos Realm had been very peaceful, and there were no more foreign forces. Dawn. At dawn, a ray of light had just passed through the horizon and illuminated the whole earth. Suddenly, a deafening sound resounded through the sky. At the same time, all the living beings in the Chaos Realm entered a state of sluggishness. The whole world seemed to have been sealed, and no one could move. Even the newborn babies stopped crying, and the primal Chaos Realm quieted down. However, there was one person who was not affected by this powerful vibration. The moment he heard this sound, he rushed into the sky with his fastest speed. His pitch-black eyes looked at the distant horizon. When Fang Chen saw the Chaos battlefield, his heart was shocked. After dozens of years of integration, the broken source world was finally completely swallowed by the Chaos Realm. At this moment, the heavenly Tao had reached a perfect level. The sound just now was the sound of the perfect collision of the heavenly Tao, and it could affect all living beings in the world. This was why the shocking scene just now had occurred. However, Fang Chen was different. He was the leader of the human race, the realm lord of the Chaos Realm, and a sovereign realm expert. He had long been connected with the heavenly Tao, so he was not affected. He witnessed the complete transformation of the heavenly Tao, and the area of the Chaos battlefield instantly skyrocketed, and directly swallowed the broken source world. Buzz. This sound that penetrated the hearts of all living beings only lasted for a breath of time, and then disappeared. Then, everyone in every corner of the Chaos Realm returned to normal. However, they had no idea what had just happened. Life went on as usual. Only Lung Xian and other top experts vaguely felt something. They came out of their seclusion and rushed over from all directions, and soon came in front of Fang Chen. Leader, what happened? The Supreme Sovereign was the first to arrive, and asked with a serious face. The shock that came from the depths of his soul just now actually made him feel a trace of fear. From now on, there will no longer be an origin world in this world. Fang Chen's gaze swept across the crowd as he grinned. As soon as he said those words, the tense atmosphere immediately vanished and was replaced with excitement. Really? Everyone's faces were filled with joy. They all looked in the direction of the primal chaos battlefield. If they didn't look, they wouldn't have known, but when they did, they were shocked. The primal chaos battlefield had indeed expanded. Wonderful. The heavenly Tao is perfect, and the primal chaos realm is expanding. The rise of the primal chaos realm is just around the corner, the great sovereign said. A rare smile appeared on Lung Xian's flawless face. Her beautiful eyes sparkled as if she was very happy. The current chaos realm could be considered a truly perfect chaos realm. Everyone chatted for a long time. Suddenly, Fang Chen said, the heavenly Tao has transformed to perfection, and the primal chaos realm has completely devoured the origin world. It's obvious that a large amount of special energy will appear between the clashes. I hope you can seize this opportunity. I'll head back first. The Supreme Sovereign was the first to leave. He couldn't wait to go into seclusion. The others did the same. How could they miss such a good opportunity? In the blink of an eye, Fang Chen was left alone. He looked at the boundless chaos realm, and his heart was filled with emotion. Who would have thought that a young man from the ancient sword continent's divine wind nation, a land of pills, could walk step by step to the top of the primal chaos realm? Brother Chen. Star and Moon had been here for a long time, but she didn't want to disturb Lung Xian and the other experts when they were here. She could only come after they left. Fang Chen turned and looked at Star and Moon, his eyes full of tenderness. Is the heavenly Tao perfect? Star and Moon asked. Fang Chen nodded. It's perfect. The origin world is already history. I'm afraid the devouring demons would never have dreamed that the space they worked so hard to create would become a wedding dress for us. Star and Moon leaned on Fang Chen's chest and said softly, the battle 10 years ago had a great impact on the Chaos Realm. The people around us are all doing their best to cultivate. Even their two sons, Fang Yun and Fang Han, who didn't like to cultivate, were still in seclusion. As for their sister, Fang Shi, she had already vaguely comprehended a higher level of power, and her strength had improved by leaps and bounds. That's good. I can't protect the Chaos Realm forever. Our hometown is very special. Once it's exposed, it'll be the greatest crisis in history, Fang Chen said. Every time he thought of this, Fang Chen's expression became very solemn. He really wanted to stay in the Chaos Realm and accompany his family, living a carefree life. However, when he thought of Supreme Fu Jian and the other mighty figures of the human race who didn't hesitate to enter the world gap in order to break through to a higher realm, they didn't complain even if they lost their lives. In their hearts, even though the peak of the martial Tao was their dream, what they were most worried about deep in their hearts was their hometown. At the end of the day, they were all born and raised in the Chaos Realm. They had deep feelings for this place and didn't want to see it destroyed. Therefore, they could only continue to become stronger. Fang Chen even asked himself if he would follow in the footsteps of the mighty figures and enter the world gap to fight. However, he hesitated. At the very least, he wouldn't leave in the short term. He wanted to accompany his wife, children, and friends to make up for the debt he owed them all these years. Of course. During this period, he would also think of a way to see if he could obtain some information about the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao from the Chaos Battleship. The more he knew, the more helpful it would be for the defense of the Chaos Realm. Brother Chen, accompany me around, Star and Moon said. Fang Chen's heart skipped a beat. He lowered his head to look at Star and Moon. His expression gradually blurred as he kissed her. Time always passed unconsciously. Ever since the damaged origin world was completely annexed, the Chaos Realm was temporarily free of danger. Fang Chen could finally relax and focus on accompanying Star and Moon. The couple started from the ancient sword continent's divine wind nation and walked step by step through the places they had experienced before. During this period, wherever they passed, they left behind legends of immortals. 100 years later, on the eve of the Holy Land Genius Battle, Fang Chen returned to the human race's holy land from the vast Chaos Realm with his wife, Star and Moon. He wanted to see for himself how many geniuses the special environment of the Chaos Realm had produced in the past 100 years. Chapter 4065. In 100 years, there were many geniuses in the chaotic world. The 10 palace lords of the human sacred land were extremely busy. They had been searching for good seedlings all over the world. As for Lung Xian and the others, they were still in seclusion. Currently, their most important thing was to break through to the Supreme Realm. They didn't care about such trivial matters. As the name suggested, the genius battle covered all the geniuses in the chaotic world. Fang Chen had a rough understanding. There were more than 1,000 geniuses who had signed up this time. They were the elites of the elites from all over the world. Today, the genius battle had officially begun. Fang Chen sat at the head of the table. The 10 palace lords sat on both sides. The square below was filled with people. When Fang Chen appeared, everyone's eyes were focused on him. Everyone wanted to see what kind of person this legendary leader was. Leader, can we start? The 10 palace lords asked. Fang Chen nodded. Don't worry about me. Just follow the normal procedure. I'm just here to take a look. The Void Ancestor stood up and started to host the genius battle. He was the main person in charge this time. Soon, he finished reading the rules of the competition. Then, it was time for the geniuses to fight. In the crowd, there was an inconspicuous young man. He wore a purple shirt and had a bright smile on his face. He looked at Fang Chen with respect. "Sir Leader from our Star River universe?" His name was Lin Zhon. He came from the universe. When he was young, his family had been killed by his enemies. When he was escaping, he met someone from a powerful force. He saw his talent and joined the sect. He started his journey. In just 30 years, he became the strongest person among the younger generation in the universe. Then, he went to the ancient sacred chaos world and started to explore. It wasn't until this genius battle that he had the chance to see all the geniuses in the chaotic world. He sighed. The world was too big. He needed to work harder. When the people around heard this, they frowned slightly. They seemed unhappy. The genius battle depends on yourself. You can't just rely on connections. This person thought that Lin Zhon was trying to curry favor. Hence, he mocked him. Lin Zhon turned his head and glanced at him. He shook his head and didn't say anything. In a world where the strong were respected, the fist was the absolute truth. This was the truth that he had figured out over the years. Sometimes, 100 sentences of nonsense were not as good as a single punch. What's with your attitude? The person beside Lin Zhon couldn't stand Lin Zhon's attitude. He said coldly, "I have cultivated for so many years, and no one has ever dared to treat me with such an attitude. Apologize to me immediately. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." Apologize? Lin Zhon wanted to laugh. Why? Because I'm stronger than you. The person beside Lin Zhon looked down at him and threatened him. See you in the competition then. After speaking, Lin Zhon turned his head and ignored the people around him. He focused on the competition. Rumble. The battles in the plaza continued one after another. Occasionally, there would be a dazzling battle that would make the 10 palace masters nod their heads and applaud. "Lord Leader, how is it?" Void Primogenitor asked with a smile. "Currently, there aren't any particularly outstanding seedlings," Fang Chen said. With his current status, his standards were naturally very high. Very few people could catch his eye. However, once he thought highly of someone, that person's future would be glorious. "Oh right, Lord Leader, among the geniuses this time, one of them is from the Milky Way universe." Void Primogenitor suddenly remembered. Heh! Hearing this, Fang Chen was a little stunned. He didn't expect that after so many years, another genius would appear in the Milky Way universe. "It's that guy called Lin Zhon." Void Primogenitor pointed at him to Fang Chen. The latter started to size up Lin Zhon seriously. "Not bad." Fang Chen nodded. Lin Zhon's foundation was more solid, but his overall strength seemed to be weaker. However, just as he was about to shift his gaze away, he suddenly discovered something. The aura of the Azura universe. Immediately after, Fang Chen secretly used his primordial spirit power at the Tao manifestation realm and silently probed Lin Zhon. The latter came from the Milky Way universe but had the aura of the Azura universe. It was a little special. One had to know that the Azura universe was built by Fang Chen. In order for the universe to develop, he left behind countless inheritances. However, he didn't expect that one of the most important inheritances would be obtained by someone from the Milky Way universe. This is a little interesting. After a long while, Fang Chen grinned. This guy from the Milky Way universe actually obtained the inheritance that he left behind in the Azura universe. No wonder he felt a sense of déjà vu when he first saw him. "Lin Zhon, are you willing to be my disciple and become my third disciple?" In the crowd, Lin Zhon vaguely felt that someone was secretly spying on him. However, he couldn't find out who it was. He didn't look around either. After all, this was the sacred land of the human race. There were many strong cultivators here. Even if he looked around, he wouldn't be able to find anyone. However, at this moment, an unfamiliar voice reverberated in his mind. Lin Zhon was stunned. There was an almighty who wanted to accept him as his third disciple. Who was this person? Just as Lin Zhon was puzzled, Fang Chen revealed his identity. "You and I both came from the Milky Way universe. Moreover, You also obtained the inheritance that I left behind in the Azura universe. We can be considered to be fated. Are you willing to be my disciple?" As soon as this was said, Lin Zhon was stunned. The leader wanted to accept him as his disciple. He couldn't accept this exciting news. It was as if he was in a dream. He felt that everything around him was illusory. Is this real? Lin Zhon wanted to raise his head and look at the leader. However, he realized that he couldn't move his body. "I am willing." Lin Zhon suppressed the excitement in his heart and said, "All right. From now on, you will be my third disciple. Your eldest senior brother will be Tian Xin. Your second senior brother will be Kang Ju. After the genius battle ends, we will hold the apprenticeship ceremony." After sending the voice transmission, Fang Chen closed his eyes and started to cultivate. Below, Lin Zhon was so excited that he almost jumped up. He had become the Lord Leader's disciple in a daze. Moreover, his senior brothers were actually Tian Xin and Kang Ju, two famous peak-level experts. This was simply too shocking. The person beside Lin Zhon was a little angry when he saw how excited Lin Zhon was. "Lad, you'd better be quiet. Don't disturb my preparation. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." Lin Zhon turned his head and looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. Just pray that we don't meet. Otherwise, you are dead meat," the person beside Lin Zhon threatened. Lin Zhon ignored him. He was still immersed in the joy of becoming the leader's disciple. At the same time, the mystery in his heart was finally solved. The inheritance that he had obtained in the Azura universe was actually left behind by the leader. No wonder his cultivation level improved so rapidly after obtaining the inheritance. Qing Shi whispered. Chapter 4066. After cultivating for so many years, from the ancient Sword Continent's divine wind nation to the current peak of the chaotic world, no one knew what Fang Chen had experienced. Sometimes, he had almost died, but he had survived. No matter what, he would never give up. This kind of tenacity was why he could cultivate to such a level. Countless geniuses had gathered at the chaotic world genius battle. Fang Chen had only come to watch the battle casually. He wanted to see what kind of changes the chaotic world had brought to the people in the past 100 years. However, he didn't expect to meet a cultivator from the Star River universe here. He also happened to receive the inheritance that he had left in the Shura universe. It could only be said that fate had long been decided. With his strength, he could see that Lin Zhon was extraordinary at a glance. Therefore, he directly accepted him as a disciple. In addition to the 3 disciples he had accepted before, Lin Zhon was his 4th disciple. His first disciple, Tian Xin, was now famous in the chaotic world. His second disciple, Kang Ju, although his talent was average, his tenacity was the strongest among the disciples. As for his third disciple, she was also the only female disciple under Fang Chen. Her name was Qin Yu. Back then, during the human race's Holy Land Genius battle, she had defeated Luo Xiao and became the disciple of the human race's leader. When this news spread out, it shocked the entire human race. However, no one knew that Qin Yu's body contained an extremely strong white tiger bloodline. If she reached the atavism level in time, she would become a super expert comparable to the white tiger. As a master, he was not competent at all. After accepting a disciple, he threw Qin Yu into the Northern Sea and let her train in the sacrificial ground left behind by Supreme Master Fu Jian. A few decades ago, when Fang Chen accompanied his wife, Star and Moon, to travel the chaotic world, he had gone there once. He found that Qin Yu's cultivation was going smoothly, and her white tiger bloodline was recovering day by day. He didn't disturb her and quietly left. Now, Fang Chen sat on the highest bronze throne with a smile on his face. "Leader, do you have anyone you like?" Fire Dome Palace Master asked. He vaguely remembered that the leader had accepted a disciple in the last genius battle. He didn't know how it would be this time. This batch of geniuses is much more talented than the previous batch. It seems like the day of the Chaos Realm's rise is coming. Primogenitor Nihility smiled. The other palace masters nodded as well. Ever since they had devoured the damaged origin world and recovered all the lost heavenly fate, The heavenly Tao of the chaotic world had transformed to a perfect state. As time passed, the characteristics of the chaotic world became more and more obvious. The former original realm was recovering, and the talents of the warriors were naturally improving. Just as everyone was discussing, there was a sudden clamor in the square. Fang Chen lowered his head to take a look. It turned out that the person fighting was Lin Zhon. However, those shouts weren't for Lin Zhon. They were for his opponent, a dark-skinned fatty. Boom! In the time it takes for sparks to fly off a piece of flint, the two of them fought fiercely together. Lin Zhon was at a disadvantage right from the start. He had been suppressed by the tanned fatty and was struggling to hold on. Primogenitor Nihility frowned and shook his head. This little brat from the Star River universe is far inferior to the Lord Chancellor. You can't blame him. He is already very strong, but his opponent is even stronger, Palace Master Cheung said. The Fire Dome Palace Master said, that dark-skinned fatty comes from the Primal Chaos Desert. He's the #1 genius there. At such a young age, he's comprehended all the highest-level skills in the Primal Chaos Desert. He's seen as the person with the highest chance of entering the Primal Chaos realm. The 10 Palace Masters all had high hopes for the dark-skinned fatty. After all, the potential that he had displayed was enough to suppress Lin Zhon in all aspects. However, Fang Chen didn't care about all this. A temporary failure didn't mean anything. Lin Zhon had started out late, and the cultivation conditions in the universe were also worse. However, the dark-skinned fatty was different. He was a prodigy from the desert Primal Chaos and enjoyed all the cultivation resources in the entire Primal Chaos. As a result, the gap between the two of them was naturally much larger. Many people judged a hero based on success or failure. However, with Fang Chen's mindset, he looked at long-term potential and didn't want to squeeze out one's potential in a short period of time. Dawn. After an hour of intense battle, Lin Zhon was defeated by the dark-skinned fatty as expected. However, it wasn't a crushing defeat. This was out of everyone's expectations. After his defeat, Lin Zhon walked back to his original position. He secretly glanced at the leader on the bronze throne and realized that the leader was smiling at him apologetically. HMPH. How dare someone like you participate in the Battle of Geniuses? Those who had mocked Lin Zhon before started to mock him again. However, Lin Zhon directly ignored them. Outside the sacred ground, a towering tree was rushing towards the sacred ground at a speed that couldn't be seen by the naked eye. If one looked carefully, they would be shocked to discover that there were 4 harmless animals sitting on the tree branches. They were a rat, an ant, a pangolin, and a seahorse. However, the top experts in the chaotic world knew that these weren't ordinary beasts. They were the legendary 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain. They were the leader's life and death brothers. Beside them was a young man sitting cross-legged. He was surrounded by a terrifying aura. He was Luo Xiao. After 100 years of cultivation, his strength was no longer the same as before. When they heard that the Battle of Geniuses had begun, the 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain decided to bring him to take a look. At the same time, they wanted to test his progress in the past 100 years. Luo Xiao, don't lose face for us, said the little mouse. Although Qin Yu is the leader's disciple, her foundation isn't as good as yours. With the 5 of us teaching you, it shouldn't be a problem for you to defeat her, said the Ant Queen. Let's go see how the geniuses in this Battle of Geniuses are. Let's see if there's anyone who can make our eyes shine, said the pangolin calmly. The seahorse was a bit curious. I wonder if the leader will accept a disciple this time. When they were about to reach the sacred ground, they coincidentally bumped into Tian Xin and Kang Ju's 9th brother. Greetings, martial uncles. Tian Xin and Kang Ju were very respectful when they saw the 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain. They hurriedly cupped their fists and greeted them. Why did the 2 of you come back? Asked the little mouse. Martial uncles, we received a message from Master. He asked us to come back and see junior brother, said Tian Xin. Hearing this, the 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain were stunned. What? Leader accepted another disciple? Qin Yu was a girl. This time, the leader asked Tian Xin and Kang Ju to come back and see junior brother. That meant that he had accepted another disciple. Let's go and see what kind of person leader's disciple is. The little mouse couldn't wait any longer and hurriedly urged Tian Xin and Kang Ju. Martial uncles, please go first. The senior and junior brothers gestured for the 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain to enter the sacred ground first. Chapter 4067. The genius battle proceeded in an orderly manner. Occasionally, some amazing talents would appear. Some of them even attracted the attention of the 10 palace lords. They personally came out to take them in as disciples. Even if they were slightly better, the other almighties would fight to take them in as disciples. In short, the entire process of the genius battle was very successful. However, there was still a small interlude. When Lin Zhon appeared, he defeated a genius with lightning speed. The latter wasn't convinced and burned his blood essence to severely injure Lin Zhon. However, Lin Zhon forcefully cut off one of his arms. Next, the warrior who mocked Lin Zhon didn't let go of such a good opportunity. He stood on the side of justice and accused Lin Zhon of maliciously injuring others. He also said that he would teach Lin Zhon a lesson. He has already lost. You even cut off his arm. You are simply too vicious, the warrior who mocked Lin Zhon said coldly. Instantly, everyone was criticizing Lin Zhon. After all, the warrior who mocked Lin Zhon was extremely powerful. He had been famous for a long time and had many followers. I didn't break the rules, Lin Zhon said coldly. Humph, do you think you are very powerful? Do you know that there is always someone better than you? The warrior who mocked Lin Zhon scolded angrily. Today, let me teach you a lesson. As soon as he finished speaking, the warrior who mocked Lin Zhon attacked directly. The moment he attacked, he unleashed the terrifying power of yin and yang. It condensed into a yin-yang fish and attacked Lin Zhon rapidly. However, Lin Zhon kept dodging with ease and counterattacked from time to time. Damn it! Seeing this, the warrior who mocked Lin Zhon became even more furious. He lost his sense of propriety and only focused on attacking. His moves were full of loopholes. Fang Chen, who was on the spectator stand, nodded in satisfaction. Strictly speaking, Lin Zhon's strength was similar to his opponent's. However, he could skillfully make use of his opponent's carelessness and underestimate. He kept provoking his opponent. This way, the opponent was completely enraged and full of loopholes. Unknowingly, Lin Zhon was already in an invincible position. Moreover, Lin Zhon still had a trump card. That was his inheritance. Lin Zhon is not bad. The hot-tempered Fire Dome Palace Lord couldn't help but praise Lin Zhon. The Void Primogenitor glanced at Fang Chen. My lord, how is it? Not bad. Fang Chen's comment was like a thunderclap in the ears of the 10 palace masters. One had to know that up until now, there were many people who were stronger than Lin Zhon. However, the Lord Leader had never commented on any of them. Just these 2 words were enough to show how much the Lord Leader valued Lin Zhon. Boom! After an intense battle, Lin Zhon cleverly defeated the martial artist who mocked him. You lost. Lin Zhon grinned. You. The cultivator who mocked Lin Zhon crawled up from the ground and stared at Lin Zhon with bloodshot eyes. He wanted to tear Lin Zhon into pieces. Do you only know how to use such despicable means? In a competition, we only care about the outcome. We don't care about the process, Lin Zhon said. If this was the battlefield, you would already be a dead man. You have no right to speak to me here. Boom. The martialists who mocked Lin Zhon still wanted to attack but were stopped by Void Ancestor. Enough. Void Ancestor stood up and scanned the crowd. On the battlefield, the enemy won't talk nonsense with you. As long as they find a chance, they will give you a fatal blow. Hearing this, the cultivator who mocked Lin Zhon lowered his head. Lin Zhon won this battle, Void Ancestor announced. At this moment, waves of energy came from the void. Immediately after, everyone realized that 5 strange-looking fellows had appeared out of thin air. Everyone was shocked, and they exclaimed, "The 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain." They were legendary strong martial artists from the Chaos world. They had followed the Lord Leader and fought everywhere. Now, they had become famous strong martial artists. The last time they appeared was more than 100 years ago. They had taken in a disciple called Luo Xiao. That is, The 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain. They actually came. Look, Luo Xiao is here too. Many people were curious. Under the guidance of the 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain, how strong had Luo Xiao become? Boss, we are here. The 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain were still casual as they greeted Fang Chen. Tian Xin and Kang Ju had also come together to greet their master. Congratulations, master. You have another disciple under your command. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned. Huh? What do you mean? Tian Xin and Kang Ju are the Lord Leader's disciples. What did they say just now? Could it be that the Lord Leader thinks highly of one of us? In an instant, everyone was guessing. Their expressions were different. Only Lin Zhon was relatively calm. Master, who is 4th junior brother? Kang Ju was a little impatient. Lin Zhon greets the 2 senior brothers and the 5 uncle masters. Amidst the noise, Lin Zhon took a step forward and knelt on one knee. Lin Zhon, are you crazy? Someone shouted and asked Lin Zhon to come back quickly. Today was such a grand occasion. If he ruined it and made the Lord Leader angry, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, no one expected Fang Chen to flick his finger. Instantly, a gentle force helped Lin Zhon up. Moreover, a mark was injected into Lin Zhon's body. From today onwards, Lin Zhon will be my 4th disciple. Fang Chen's announcement stunned everyone. Tian Xin and Kang Ju smiled and came to Lin Zhon's side. They congratulated their junior brother. Ha ha ha, this is great. Congratulations, junior brother. At the same time, the 2 of them took out 2 items from their pockets and passed them to Lin Zhon. This is our greeting gift. When Lin Zhon was hesitating, the little mouse said, Kid, just accept it. This is nothing. As he spoke, the old faker swayed and plucked a tree branch. He said, You are boss's disciple, which means you are our martial nephew. We didn't bring any greeting gift. Just accept this tree branch. Everyone was in an uproar. This was the legendary divine tree. Just a tree branch was enough to increase one's cultivation by 100 years. It was definitely something that the cultivation world dreamed of. This guy's luck is too good, right? From the initial shock and jealousy to the current envy. Everyone was simply stunned. The 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain casually gave out a tree branch from the divine tree. Tian Xin and Kang Ju even gave out rare treasures. This was too enviable. Under everyone's envious gazes, Lin Zhon accepted the gifts one by one. Chapter 4068. With Fang Chen's announcement, the genius battle came to an end. Many people looked at Lin Zhon with envy and jealousy. To be honest, all the cultivators who participated in the genius battle and even the entire Chaos Realm treated Fang Chen as their idol and motivation. It was their goal. No one didn't want to become the leader's disciple. Even if it was just an in-name disciple or just a little guidance, it would be a great honor. One must know that Tian Xin and Kang Ju's achievements were so great that no one could catch up to them. Many people thought that as long as they joined the leader's faction, their future would be immeasurable. The competition that gathered all the geniuses in the entire Chaos Realm was actually snatched away by an ordinary-looking and inconspicuous fellow. Many people were filled with unwillingness and dissatisfaction, but they didn't dare to say it out loud. All right, all of you can disperse. Void Ancestor stood up and said. After a while, only Fang Chen and the others were left in the square. Lin Zhon stood beside Tian Xin and Kang Ju. He was familiarizing himself with his 2 senior brothers. The 5 tyrants of Cheung Mountain were explaining some combat techniques to Luo Xiao. As for Fang Chen, he was connected to the world. With just a thought, he arrived at the North Sea. Buzz. With a thought, he entered the North Sea and came to the North Sea. He saw Qin Yu, who was cultivating at the altar. After 100 years of training, Qin Yu was no longer the young girl from before. At this moment, her cheeks were covered with the marks of time. Her body was filled with boundless power. Especially the white tiger bloodline in her body. It was gradually being activated, and her strength was getting stronger. Buzz. Suddenly, Fang Chen appeared and waved his hand. Immediately, the turbulent forbidden land of the North Sea seemed to be frozen in time and space. Qin Yu, who was cultivating, suddenly trembled and opened his eyes. He saw his master, Fang Chen. "Master, why are you here?" 100 years had turned the young girl into a peerless woman. However, in front of Fang Chen, she was still just a disciple. Qin Yu knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Fang Chen. "Get up." Fang Chen sized up Qin Yu and sensed that a portion of the white tiger bloodline in her body had been activated. "You've improved quite well in the past 100 years. Let's go, I'll bring you back." Before Qin Yu could react, the world was spinning. When she stabilized her body, she was surprised to find that she had appeared in the Holy Land Square, and there were familiar people around her. The 5 hegemons of Jade Mountain, Luo Xiao, and his 2 senior martial brothers. "Junior sister Qin Yu, we haven't seen each other for over 100 years. Seeing Qin Yu, Tian Xin and Kang Ju couldn't wait to greet him. Qin Yu also cupped his fists and said, "Qin Yu greets the 2 senior apprentice brothers." "Ha ha ha, junior sister Qin Yu, master has accepted another disciple. Come, let me introduce him to you. This is our little junior brother, Lin Zhon." Kang Ju pulled Lin Zhon over and introduced him to Qin Yu. "Lin Zhon greets 3rd senior sister." Lin Zhon hurriedly bowed to Qin Yu. "I didn't expect master to take in another disciple." "That's great." Qin Yu grinned. "Qin Yu, how's your cultivation in the past 100 years? The little mouse chuckled. "Luo Xiao has improved a lot. He wants to spar with you. He wants to see if boss is better at teaching disciples or if we, the 5 hegemons of Jade Mountain, are better at teaching disciples," the Ant Emperor said. Luo Xiao looked at Qin Yu with burning eyes. His entire body was filled with battle intent. "Qin Yu, do you dare to spar with me?" In the battle 100 years ago, although Luo Xiao was stronger than Qin Yu, everyone knew that Qin Yu was the final victor. She had successfully become the disciple of the leader of the human race. However, to outsiders, Luo Xiao was also not bad. He had been accepted as a disciple by the leader's brothers, the 5 hegemons of Jade Mountain. In the past 100 years, Luo Xiao had been cultivating bitterly. He hoped that one day, he could prove that he was the most outstanding. Now, the opportunity had finally arrived. "Go on. Fight to your heart's content. Let master see your improvement in the past 100 years." Fang Chen nodded and said. After getting master's permission, Qin Yu said heroically, "Why wouldn't I dare?" As they spoke, the 2 of them walked to the center of the square. Fang Chen personally set up restrictions to prevent their battle from being interrupted. The 5 hegemons of Jade Mountain urged Luo Xiao to do his best and not worry too much. After all, they were here. If anything happened, they would be able to stop the battle immediately. Hence, they didn't have to worry about hurting others. "3rd senior sister, you can do it." Lin Zhon cheered Qin Yu on. Tian Xin and Kang Ju also nodded heavily. "We believe that junior sister will definitely win." The leader's lineage only had 4 disciples. Tian Xin and Kang Ju didn't need to be mentioned. They had relied on their own efforts to make a name for themselves in the Chaos Realm. As for the 3rd disciple, Qin Yu, ever since she was accepted as a disciple, she was thrown into the forbidden land of the North Sea to cultivate. This battle was a chance to let the world know about her, Qin Yu. Boom. Qin Yu and Luo Xiao fought fiercely. The 5 hegemons of Jade Mountain watched with interest as they chatted with Fang Chen. "Boss, unknowingly, you have already accepted 4 disciples." Thinking about how the 5 brothers had followed their boss to conquer the world, from a small place until now, the brothers couldn't help but sigh. They also knew that their boss couldn't stay in the Chaos Realm forever. He would definitely go to a bigger stage, the 3,000 worlds of the Great Tao. Hence, they cherished the time they had now. "You guys." Fang Chen shook his head. He knew his brothers too well. They had all fought life and death with him. "Let's watch the battle first." Just as the brothers were talking, Qin Yu and Luo Xiao had already used all their trump cards and started to fight fiercely. At first glance, Luo Xiao had the advantage in terms of strength. This was also in line with his characteristics. His physical body was very special, and the 5 hegemons of Jade Mountain had also carried out demonic training for him. Now, His physical strength had already reached a terrifying level. In comparison, Qin Yu's physical body seemed a little weak. However, in terms of bloodline, Qin Yu clearly had the advantage. This was under the condition that the White Tiger bloodline hadn't fully awakened. The two of them fought back and forth, and it was abnormally fierce. No one could do anything to the other. As expected of third junior sister. What a powerful bloodline. Tian Xin couldn't help but praise. Nonsense. Is there a weak disciple that master has accepted? Kang Ju said proudly. Lin Zhon, who was at the side, clenched his fists tightly. He swore in his heart that he would definitely work hard in his cultivation and not let his master down. At the same time, he turned his head to look at Tian Xin and Kang Ju. Finally, his gaze returned to Qin Yu, who was on the battlefield. One day, I will be like senior brother and senior sister and make master feel proud. Chapter 4069. One had to admit that Luo Xiao's strength had improved by leaps and bounds under the guidance of the 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain. The 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain were full of smiles after seeing Luo Xiao's performance. After teaching for nearly 100 years, the 5 of them had taught this disciple all their trump cards. They hoped that he could break through himself and reach a new level in the future. Of course. Although the 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain were usually unruly, they were not inferior in teaching disciples. After watching the battle for a while, Fang Chen praised the 5 brothers. You guys are good. Fang Chen grinned and said, I didn't expect you guys to be better than me in teaching disciples. Speaking of this, he touched his nose a little guiltily. Boss, is that how you teach disciples? You threw them into the North Sea to train for 100 years as soon as you took them in, and then challenged them as soon as they came out. The little mouse couldn't help but complain. The Ant Emperor and the others were seriously analyzing Luo Xiao's moves and attack methods, and where the flaws were. After the battle, they would explain to him one by one and let him correct them. Not bad, you guys are indeed qualified teachers. Fang Chen nodded and said in approval, have you guys ever thought of starting a sect to spread your teachings? No one knew how big the primordial world was. Even if Fang Chen's battle strength was comparable to the Supremes, he still didn't understand the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao. Starting a sect to spread their teachings was every cultivator's dream, but the 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain had never thought of it. Hearing their boss's question, they suddenly fell into deep thought. Soon, the usually calm seahorse spoke first. I think boss's suggestion is good. Starting a sect to spread our teachings will not only pass down our teachings from generation to generation, but also greatly increase the battle strength of the primordial world. It's a win-win situation. Yes, I agree too. The pangolin said. I'm fine with it. Anyway, there's no plant cultivator in the primordial world who can reach my level. I'm lonely at the top. Before the old faker finished speaking, he was beaten up by the other 4 brothers. Will you die if you don't act? Beat him up. He's always acting in front of us. You old faker, you can only fool young people who are inexperienced. If it wasn't for boss taking you in back then, I'm afraid you would have already become a burning match for others. Being ridiculed by his 4 brothers, the old faker was not to be outdone. Humph, you have the nerve to criticize me. Among the few of you, which one of you became the strongest in the demon clan? In comparison, the old faker had already become the number 1 plant. At least in the Chaos realm, he was the undisputed number 1. However, even though Little Mouse and the other 3 were extremely powerful, and it was difficult for them to find a match in the entire chaotic realm, there was a powerful opponent right before them. A pure-blooded beast cub. When that guy went crazy, he could take on 4 people at once. Alright, let's watch the competition. Fang Chen's face was full of smiles as he watched his brothers bicker. It was as if he had returned to his youth. However, he still stopped his brothers from bickering. Everyone's attention returned to the battlefield. In the beginning, Luo Xiao clearly had the absolute advantage. On the other hand, Qin Yu's attacking style was slightly immature. However, as time went by, Qin Yu gradually adapted to such a high-intensity confrontation and was now able to stand up to Luo Xiao. At this time, Luo Xiao was a little anxious. He felt the changes in Qin Yu's body. The more he fought, the braver he became. I can't wait any longer. Luo Xiao used his trump card. He formed a seal with both hands, and above his head, a violent aura emerged. At the same time, the 5 phantoms of his masters condensed. Rat phantoms, ant queen phantoms, seahorse phantoms, pangolin phantoms, and a towering divine tree phantoms. When these 5 phantoms appeared, even Fang Chen was a little surprised. The 5 brothers beside him were grinning from ear to ear. Boss, how is it? The 5 of us have studied for 100 years to come up with this trump card. Boom. The situation on the battlefield changed rapidly. When Luo Xiao used his trump card, it was obvious that Qin Yu was unable to resist. However, at the critical moment, the white tiger bloodline in her body was completely activated under the strong pressure. Boom. 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 A violent force emerged from Qin Yu's body. Above her head, a white tiger phantoms condensed. Roar. The huge white tiger phantoms roared angrily at the 5 phantoms above Luo Xiao's head. At the same time, they rushed over and fought fiercely with the 5 phantoms. Both Luo Xiao and Qin Yu were motionless. They were fighting with their minds. White tiger bloodline? The 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain exclaimed as they felt the strong white tiger bloodline. As demonic beasts, they naturally knew about the ancient super-divine beast white tiger. However, they did not expect Qin Yu to have such a pure and strong white tiger bloodline. Now, they finally understood why their boss accepted Qin Yu as his disciple. As expected of our boss. The little mouse curled its lips. Boom. The white tiger phantoms tore apart the 5 phantoms. It was also heavily injured and collapsed. A violent force swept across the entire square. However, Fang Chen waved his hand and dispersed the force. Dong. 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 Everyone was shocked. However, the square had completely calmed down. Luo Xiao and Qin Yu both fell to the ground with a trace of blood at the corner of their mouths. Obviously, the battle of the projections had injured both of them. Crash. Fang Chen waved his hand again. 2 ultimate forces entered Qin Yu and Luo Xiao's body. Immediately, their injuries were healed. Their faces were filled with shock. All right, let's end it here, Fang Chen said. Qin Yu got up and came to Fang Chen with an apologetic face. I'm sorry, master. I've embarrassed you. Luo Xiao, who was standing at the side, did not say a word. He had cultivated hard for 100 years and even used his trump card, the 5 great projections. However, the final result was that both of them were injured. He could not accept this result. Luo Xiao, you're already very good. The little mouse said. Qin Yu, that girl, has the pure bloodline of the ancient super-divine beast white tiger. Under your strong suppression, it was completely activated. You can't win against her. Not bad, not bad. Although you didn't win, you didn't lose either. I think you'll gain a lot from this battle. Fang Chen patted Qin Yu's shoulder gently and said with a smile, there's no need to care about winning or losing in a sparring session. Strictly speaking, you and Luo Xiao are of the same lineage. There's no need to determine the winner. The 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain nodded. They were brothers with Fang Chen. Naturally, the disciples of both sides could be considered to be of the same lineage. Not bad. With such a strong opponent, you can continue to push yourself forward. The little mouse said. Hearing this, Luo Xiao's wrinkled face relaxed. He walked in front of Qin Yu and said with a smile, thank you for giving me a stronger motivation. Qin Yu, I will continue to work hard. There will be a day when I will defeat you. Chapter 4070. Boss, please give him some pointers, the little mouse suggested. After all, Fang Chen's attainments in martial arts had reached a level that was difficult for ordinary people to understand. His pointers would definitely have a huge effect on the younger generation. Sure enough. After hearing his master's words, Luo Xiao also looked at Fang Chen with a face full of expectation. Qin Yu, the reason why you were able to fight with Luo Xiao was entirely because of the white tiger bloodline. Fang Chen looked at his 3rd disciple and said with a smile, however, this is also your advantage. You have the pure bloodline of the ancient super-divine beast, the white tiger. Your future achievements are limitless. You must make good use of it. However, You can't completely rely on it. You must walk a path that belongs to you. Later, I will give you some files about the ancient divine beast, the white tiger. After briefly explaining Qin Yu's problem, Fang Chen turned his head to look at Luo Xiao. In fact, if it wasn't for the appearance of Qin Yu, who had the white tiger bloodline, Luo Xiao would definitely be the most suitable disciple candidate. After 100 years of teaching by his 5 brothers, Luo Xiao was able to grow to such an extent. Needless to say, his talent was definitely 1 in a million. Especially when he displayed the 5 great projections at the end. Although the process of combining them was a bit rough, overall, it still made Fang Chen's eyes light up. This was the trump card that his 5 good brothers had researched, and it was indeed very strong. Your 5 masters are different demonic beasts. Their divine abilities are different. Your trump card condensed the phantoms of your 5 masters. However, there are some flaws in the process of fusion. Fang Chen commented, there is a special relationship between their races. Although you can forcefully combine them, if you use a different method, first combine them in pairs, then combine them together. This way, the speed will be faster and the power will be stronger. The fusion speed of the 5 great phantoms represented their attack power. Moreover, a battle between experts was ever-changing. If one could save the fusion time, they would definitely be able to defeat the enemy first. In the following time, Fang Chen explained in detail the pros and cons of this trump card to Luo Xiao and the 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain. He even personally demonstrated it. He would let the 5 brothers work together to cast it while he tried to resolve it and find the flaws in it. Needless to say, after a few hours of research, Fang Chen really found a lot of loopholes in it and perfected them one by one. Fang Chen didn't stop commenting until night fell. At this moment, Luo Xiao had already entered a state of epiphany. The 5 tyrants of Jade Mountain nodded continuously, feeling that they had gained a lot. Thank you for your guidance, boss. He had originally intended to give pointers to Luo Xiao, but he had not expected that the 5 hegemons of Jade Mountain would benefit from it as well. They glanced at their disciple and simply sat beside Luo Xiao, surrounding him and beginning to cultivate. It could be considered as protecting him. Let's go. Seeing this, Fang Chen quietly left with his 4 disciples. He was not worried at all that someone would dare to cause trouble here. This was the human race's holy land, where the top experts of the human race gathered. No one in the world dared to come here, and no one could come here. After returning to his own courtyard, Fang Chen sat on the stone bench. The 4 disciples stood in a row and watched him attentively. If you have any questions about cultivation, feel free to ask me, said Fang Chen. It wouldn't be long before he left the Chaos Realm and headed to the World Gap. He didn't know how long it would take for him to return. Before leaving, he planned to seriously teach his 4 disciples. At the very least, they would be able to grow quickly after he left. Master, I have a question. As the eldest senior brother, Tianxin was the first to ask. Kang Ju and Qin Yu also asked many questions. Only Lin Zhon listened attentively. He felt that he had benefited greatly. Time passed bit by bit. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 years had passed. During this period, Fang Chen had been teaching his 4 disciples. As for Leng Xian and the other experts, they were also in seclusion. The huge Chaos Realm was prosperous. The heavenly Tao had completed its transformation. The brand new Chaos Realm already had a hint of the original realm. The heaven and earth spiritual energy recovered, and more cultivators appeared. Geniuses appeared one after another, causing the overall strength of the Chaos Realm to increase by leaps and bounds. Seeing this, Fang Chen was very happy. One day, Fang Chen was giving a public lecture on the Saint Island when his communication jade pendant suddenly flickered. Then, his expression changed. He left everyone behind and disappeared from the Saint Island in a flash. In the next moment, he arrived at the battleship on the Chaos battlefield. What's the matter? Fang Chen asked hurriedly when he saw RDA on the battleship. Just now, RDA sent him a message saying that something had happened and asked him to hurry over. Master, I sensed a trace of the Hydra organization's aura, said RDA. Hearing this, Fang Chen's expression changed drastically. He frowned and said, "What's going on? Weren't the Hydra and White Emperor Palaces marks all wiped off this battleship? Logically speaking, the White Cloud Realm was so far away from the Chaos Realm. It was impossible to find the Chaos Realm. As for the Hydra organization, members could die at any time. It was impossible for them to send out elites to take revenge because of the death of a member. Then, what was going on with the Hydra organization's aura that our DA sensed? Master, you don't have to worry. I used to be a member of the Hydra organization. I'm extremely sensitive to the Hydra organization's aura. The aura I sensed just now disappeared in a flash. It should be a member of the Hydra organization who was driving a battleship through the world gap. He accidentally passed by this place and was captured by me through the realm wall, said our DA. However, Fang Chen didn't relax. This was a matter of great importance. He couldn't be careless. If it was really as our DA said, it would be fine. However, if something else happened and the Chaos Realm was exposed to the experts of the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao, all living beings in the Chaos Realm would be in danger. He was quickly thinking about how to deal with it. Can I still return if I pilot this battleship into the world gap? Asked Fang Chen. Our DA nodded. If I pilot a battleship, I can freely travel through the world gap. As long as I have the coordinates, I won't get lost. The experts who were lost in the world gap were very likely to encounter space-time storms or have their battleships destroyed. All right, pilot the battleship now and accompany me into the world gap to take a look, said Fang Chen. He wanted to go in and see what was going on. Master, the battleship needs energy to activate, but we don't have enough energy now, said our DA previously. They had a large number of energy crystals. However, after 100 years, apart from erasing the marks, our DA had also been repairing the damage on the battleship, causing them to lose a large number of energy crystals. I'll find the energy crystals. You're in charge of inspecting the battleship. We'll set off in a day. After Fang Chen said that, he left silently. Primordial Sword Supremacy Source. Chapter 4071. A day later. Fang Chen once again arrived at the battleship on the Chaos battlefield. Our DA had already finished adjusting the battleship and was waiting for Fang Chen. Master, are the energy crystals ready? Our DA asked. Fang Chen nodded and threw the interspatial ring to our DA. There was a mountain of energy crystals inside. Our DA immediately went to work and placed the energy crystals into the card slot. Rumble. The battleship activated and passed through the heaven refining formation. Then, it passed through the realm wall and disappeared. Buzz. In an instant, Fang Chen felt his vision turn white. Then, he felt the battleship shaking. Our DA's voice came from the side. Master, you will feel dizzy when you enter the world gap for the first time. However, you will soon get used to it. Don't leave the battleship easily. It's very easy to get lost in the world gap. It's very dangerous. A gust of wind might be a spatial annihilation storm that can destroy the body of a supreme stage expert. Hearing this, Fang Chen was stunned. However, he had already learned a lot about the situation in the world gap from the great monarchs. He had a rough understanding of it. Dong, dong, dong. After the battleship shook violently for a few seconds, it returned to normal. Fang Chen looked through the battleship's window and realized that he seemed to be in the void. Everything seemed to be still. Planets floated past his eyes. From time to time, he could see some black holes spreading and devouring the planets. At a glance, he couldn't see the end. It was like a long river of time, making him feel very small. Is this the world gap? Fang Chen couldn't help but ask. Why did he feel like he was in the outer space of his hometown, Earth? However, he soon realized that the two weren't on the same level at all. Every planet here represented a civilization, but there were also some barren planets. Although the lightning seemed gentle, it was actually capable of threatening utmost exalts. Boom! While he was immersed in his thoughts, a huge beast suddenly leapt out from the ground. However, a gust of wind blew past and destroyed it instantly. Fang Chen was completely stunned. That was a supreme stage demonic beast, but it was annihilated by the wind. No wonder the great sage said that the world gap was extremely dangerous. Supreme stage experts would most likely die if they entered. It was too terrifying. At the same time, he also realized the role of the battleship. Phew, Fang Chen took a deep breath and tried his best to calm the shock in his heart. Beside him, RDA explained in detail, "Master, the world gap is huge. Those top experts can't finish traversing it in their entire lives. Although the 3,000 great realms of the Great Tao are all in the world gap, they are too far apart. Therefore, very few people travel between the realms. Only true top experts would be famous in the world gap. Of course, experts of that level were too rare. Only by personally entering the world gap would one realize how insignificant one was." At that moment, Fang Chen had a deep understanding of this. However, he quickly calmed down and began to look around. The planet behind him was the primal chaos realm. It looked very beautiful, but there were some faintly discernible cracks around it. Fang Chen guessed that this was caused by the changes in the original realm. "Master, look." At that moment, RDA suddenly exclaimed. Fang Chen looked in the direction of his voice and suddenly realized that there was a small vortex in the place where the fiend beasts had been annihilated. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. He could vaguely see a battleship. The Hydra organization? Seeing this, Fang Chen's heart jumped to his throat. The primal chaos realm was very remote. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to find it at all. He couldn't let people from other organizations discover the primal chaos realm. Otherwise, it would definitely be a disaster. "What should we do?" Fang Chen asked. RDA comforted him. "Don't panic. Although it seems very close, it's actually very far. Even an advanced battleship will take at least a month to reach us. The premise is that they have an interstellar map and won't get lost in the world gap. Interstellar maps were very precious. Ordinary people couldn't buy them at all." Just like that, Fang Chen and RDA piloted the battleship and waited patiently in the world gap outside the primal chaos realm. However, as time went by, the battleship really came toward them. Fang Chen couldn't wait anymore. He asked RDA if the battleship had any means of attack. "Yes. As long as there are enough energy crystals, the cannons on the battleship can attack from a distance." Immediately, RDA started to control the battleship and launched an attack on the incoming battleship of the Hydra organization. Boom! The cannonball accurately hit the battleship in the distance. However, there seemed to be a protective shield on the battleship that blocked the cannonball's attack. At the same time, it emitted a terrifying aura. "Oh no!" RDA cursed inwardly. He braced himself and continued to attack the battleship. After a while, the battleship approached and a sound wave was transmitted into Fang Chen's ears. "Stupid ants! How dare you attack the great Tiandao monarch? You're courting death." As soon as he finished speaking, a cold voice came from the battleship again. "You only have one choice. Hand over the battleship and all your wealth and become my slaves. Otherwise, I'll kill you without mercy." Fang Chen's face turned pale. He was guessing how many people were on the battleship. "Master, there are clear ripples on the battleship," RDA exclaimed. "What do you mean?" Fang Chen asked. "Clear ripples are exclusive to the core members of the Hydra organization. Generally speaking, the core members are extremely powerful. Even a supreme might not be their match." RDA's heart sank in an instant. When he saw the clear ripples, he knew that he would definitely die. Buzz! He obediently put away the cannons on the battleship and surrendered. Fang Chen didn't make a move. He saw a man coming out of the battleship and jumping onto his battleship at a speed that was invisible to the naked eye. Clang! The iron gate of the battleship was opened. The man with the scar smiled eerily and came to the control room. He looked at Fang Chen and RDA greedily. "Who are you? Why are you here?" The man with the scar asked. "We're traveling in the universe and passed by this place by accident," Fang Chen said. "What's the planet behind you?" The man with the scar asked. While Fang Chen was speaking, he had been observing the strength of the man with the scar. When he noticed that the latter was just a newly advanced supreme, he wanted to kill him. "Humph! You're lucky to have met my master, the Tiandao monarch. The man with the scar sneered and prepared to take control of the battleship and plunder the wealth of the two. Soon, Fang Chen and RDA were brought to the Tiandao monarch's battleship. At this moment, Fang Chen realized that although the Tiandao monarch was powerful, he was obviously sick and seriously injured at this moment. He realized that this was an excellent opportunity. Chapter 4072. There were clear ripples covering the warship. This proved that the Heavenly Saber King was definitely a core member of the Hydra organization. This was also the reason why Fang Chen and RDA did not act rashly. They were secretly observing to see if there was an opportunity. Indeed, when Fang Chen stepped onto the Heavenly Saber King's warship, he felt that his chance had come. He scanned the entire warship and found that there was only the Heavenly Saber King and the man with the scar. The rest were robots. Most importantly, although the Heavenly Saber Monarch was a core member of the Nine-Headed Snake organization, he looked like a sickly person at the moment. Only the man with the scars on his face could barely be considered a supreme-level powerhouse. Under such circumstances, Fang Chen would not let go of this opportunity. He would not allow himself to be taken advantage of. Of course, he would not act rashly. Tempage, you dare to roam the universe when you haven't even reached the Supreme Being realm? The sickly Heavenly Saber King sat cross-legged on the ground and raised his head to look at Fang Chen. His face was pale. From his eyes, one could tell that he was indeed injured. Moreover, his injuries were not light. Honorable Heavenly Saber King, we are all members of the Hydra organization. Can you give us some face? RDA said while kneeling on one knee and cupping his fist. MPH, what qualifications do you have to plead with me? The Heavenly Saber King snorted coldly. If he had not been seriously injured when passing through the black hole, he would have slapped these two people to death. Master, we can leave this Supreme Being to help us. As for that weak guy, we can just kill him, said the man with the scar. The Heavenly Saber King shook his head. Forget it. Leave them. We have already found the place of that person's inheritance. As your master's injuries are too serious, I can't enter personally. These two can be the vanguard to scout the way. Hearing this, Fang Chen's heart skipped a beat. Who exactly was the inheritance that the Heavenly Saber King mentioned? His heart tightened. Could it be that the person he mentioned was an expert from the Chaos Realm? However, Fang Chen looked calm on the surface. He carefully stared at the Heavenly Saber King, looking for an opportunity to make a move. Of course, he wouldn't foolishly make a move. Instead, he wanted to ensure that his side had the absolute strength to crush the other side. Only then would he make a move with lightning speed. Master, the man with the scar called out softly. At that moment, a dazzling light flashed on Tiandao Monarch's forehead. Then, his eyes lit up with excitement. He stood up and walked out of the battleship's deck. He pointed at the boundary wall of the Chaos Realm and grinned. I didn't expect it to be here. A long time ago, the Heavenly Saber Sovereign had sensed that person's inheritance. However, due to the great distance, it was very difficult to detect its exact location. He had spent a total of 3 years before arriving in the vicinity. Unexpectedly, it was at the border of this nameless planet's realm wall. The Heavenly Saber Sovereign flicked his finger through the world gap. Immediately, a blinding beam of light shot out and struck a certain realm wall in the Chaos Realm. At that instant, the Chaos Realm began to tremble violently. Lung Xian and the other experts came out from their seclusion and stared in the direction of the Chaos battlefield with stern expressions. Could it be that there are experts invading our Chaos Realm? Didn't he go to the world gap to investigate? At the mention of Fang Chen, everyone's expressions changed. Combined with the intense tremors that had just happened, they had an ominous premonition. 516-inch inform everyone to be on alert, said Lung Xian. At this moment, in the world gap, Fang Chen, who was standing on the Clear Ripple warship, was shocked. The legacy that the Heavenly Saber King was searching for was actually hidden in the Chaos Realm's boundary. Whose legacy was it? Fang Chen began to search his memories. In the history of the Chaos Realm, there didn't seem to be a top Saber Dao expert. He fell into deep thought. Ha ha ha, the heavens are helping me. Heavenly Saber King laughed out loud when he saw the ripples on the Chaos Realm's boundary. The man with the scar asked with a chuckle, "Master, how do we open that person's legacy? I have a mark that belongs to him. As long as I fuse the mark into this planet's boundary, it will naturally open," said Heavenly Saber King. "In that case, let me do it for you." As soon as he said that, the man with the scar suddenly attacked. A sharp dagger suddenly appeared in his hand as he stabbed Heavenly Saber King from behind. Fart. After being stabbed, Heavenly Saber King's old injuries were triggered. His body staggered as he angrily struck out with his palm at the man with the scar. However, the latter was already prepared. In addition, Heavenly Saber King's injuries were too severe. After their palms collided, Heavenly Saber King's body was sent flying with a bang. Dong. Heavenly Saber King fell to the ground. The man with the scar took advantage of the situation and continuously brandished his dagger, stabbing Heavenly Saber King more than 10 times. He only stopped when Heavenly Saber King was on the verge of death and had no combat strength left. Why? Heavenly Saber King's voice was hoarse, filled with indignation and anger. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that his own disciple would attack him. "Old fart GE, you wiped out my entire family back then and even pretended to take me in as your disciple. Do you want me to be grateful?" The man with the scar revealed his true colors as he looked at Heavenly Saber King ferociously. "I once swore that I would kill you with my own hands. After enduring humiliation for so many years, I finally got my chance." As he spoke, the man with the scar walked over to Heavenly Saber King. He held the dagger in his hand and forcefully dug out the mark on Heavenly Saber King's forehead. "Ah!" Heavenly Saber King screamed miserably. His expression was ferocious, and he was extremely furious. However, he was slapped to the ground by the man with the scar, unable to move. Fang Chen exchanged glances with RDA unexpectedly. This master and disciple actually had an internal conflict. This way, it would be easier for Fang Chen to escape danger. However, in order to know who the inheritance of that person that Heavenly Saber King spoke of was, Fang Chen decided not to make a move for now. Furthermore, the man with the scar had injured Heavenly Saber King so severely without any fear. He probably still had a backup plan. It was best to be careful. "You, just kill me." Heavenly Saber King howled in pain. "Don't worry. You will definitely die, but not now. When I get the inheritance, you can die. I hope you are not lying to me. Otherwise, I will make you beg for death." The man with the scar flashed and instantly appeared at the boundary wall of the primal chaos realm. He held the mark in his hand, preparing to open the inheritance. At this moment, Fang Chen felt somewhat nervous. He was afraid that the man with the scar would break the boundary wall and enter the primal chaos realm. "Heavenly Saber King, who is the inheritance that you speak of?" Fang Chen asked. Chapter 4073. Although the man with the scar was a supreme being, Fang Chen could sense that he had just entered the supreme being realm. He might not even be stronger than the two from the White Emperor Palace. In the blink of an eye, Fang Chen thought of a way to deal with him. He also wanted to know what the inheritance of the mysterious expert that the Sky Saber Monarch had mentioned was. He even suspected that the mysterious expert might be a sage from the primal chaos realm. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the man with the scar arrived at the boundary wall. Holding a weapon, he slashed at the boundary wall and used the mark to enter. As long as you kill him, the Sky Saber Monarch let out a miserable cry. He had been traveling the universe and encountered a great enemy, causing him to be severely injured. He thought that he could regain his peak strength after obtaining the inheritance, but now, he was plotted against by the disciple he was most proud of. His heart was filled with hatred. At this moment, he only wanted the man with the scar to die. "He has already entered the relic?" Fang Chen asked coldly. "Ha ha ha. He can't enter." The Sky Saber Monarch was a little deranged. The inheritance of that expert wasn't something that ordinary people could obtain. Even with his mark, one couldn't enter because, to enter the relic, one needed a drop of blood. "You have blood?" Fang Chen asked. The Sky Saber Monarch nodded, his eyes filled with killing intent. "If you kill him, I'll give you my blood. Otherwise, even if I die, I'll destroy the blood. Deal." Soon, Fang Chen reached an agreement with the Sky Saber Monarch. He let Ada take control of the battleship and tried to erase the mark of the Hydra organization while he chased after the man. When he arrived at the boundary wall, he suddenly realized that the mark was flickering. At a glance, there was only endless darkness. He didn't hesitate to enter the darkness. Buzz. Fang Chen felt his vision turn dark. Then, he realized that he had arrived in an independent space. The surrounding space was vaguely wriggling. It was obvious that this was the center of the boundary wall. In front, the man with the scar was standing in front of a palace. Rumble. A deafening sound was heard. No matter how hard the man with the scar attacked, he couldn't break through the palace's defense. Damn it. The man with the scar gritted his teeth. He couldn't wait to turn around and kill his master. However, at this moment, he discovered Fang Chen's aura. He turned his head abruptly, and his eyes locked onto Fang Chen. You're courting death. As soon as he finished speaking, the man unleashed the power of a supreme being and fought fiercely with Fang Chen. The latter easily dodged his killing move, which surprised him. Interesting. No wonder he dared to enter the world gap. The corners of the man's mouth curled up, revealing a strange smile. If I'm not wrong, you should be someone from the boundary wall. Come here obediently and accept your death. Otherwise, I'll destroy this boundary. Hearing this, Fang Chen's face darkened. You want to destroy my hometown? Have you asked for my permission? In the next instant, Fang Chen activated the ultimate power in his body. The gray energy circled around his body. He clenched his fists and fought fiercely with the man with the scar. The more he fought, the braver he became. His combat strength wasn't inferior to the man with the scar. After a fierce battle, the man with the scar also felt that Fang Chen was difficult to deal with. After a collision, the man with the scar took a few steps back and stabilized his body. He said coldly, "Kid, are you really going to force me?" It was obvious that the Heavenly Saber Sovereign hated him and had sent this guy to obstruct him. "So what if I force you?" Fang Chen said. "Do you believe that I won't destroy this boundary wall now?" The man with the scar threatened. How could Fang Chen give him the chance? In any case, this was the space within the boundary wall. The man with the scar would need some time to leave. During this time, Fang Chen could do many things. Condense. Fang Chen shouted and fought fiercely with the man with the scar again. However, the man with the scar didn't seem to be willing to be entangled with Fang Chen. He was focused on the inheritance in the palace. After all, the Heavenly Saber Sovereign wasn't dead yet. With him around, there might be some trouble. Furthermore, the more he fought with Fang Chen, the more he felt that the other party was unfathomable. It gave him a very strange feeling. The other party was clearly not at the supreme realm, but he wasn't inferior to him at all. Such powerful strength made him think of many things. Generally speaking, only a top faction in the 3,000 Great Dao realms could produce such a monstrous genius. Furthermore, to dare send such a genius into the world gap was enough to show the boldness of this faction. He was a little worried. If such a huge commotion attracted the faction behind Fang Chen, he would be doomed. Thus, before he knew of Fang Chen's strength, the man with the scar was still somewhat fearful. He wanted to suppress Fang Chen as quickly as possible. However, as time passed, he was shocked to discover that he had unknowingly fallen into a disadvantageous position. He became even more anxious. If this continued, he would be defeated. How can this be? The man with the scar was stunned. He had plotted against the Heavenly Saber Sovereign, but he didn't expect that it would be ruined by a brat who was still wet behind the ears. Boom. After a collision, the man with the scar clearly felt ultimate power invading his body, causing his organs to churn. His body couldn't take it anymore. Fortunately, he had used up a large amount of supreme power in time to barely stabilize his body. Stop. At this moment, he had no choice but to stop. If he continued to fight, even if he won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. At that time, it would affect his chances of obtaining the mysterious expert's inheritance. There were no absolute allies or enemies in the world. Everything was for the sake of benefits. We can work together. The man with the scar took a step back. Let's explore the inheritance together and accept it together. How about that? Seeing that Fang Chen didn't say anything, the man with the scar continued, "After I obtain the inheritance, I will travel through the world gap at the fastest speed and leave this place. I will never be able to return. It won't affect your life or the space behind you at all. As for the heavenly saber sovereign, you don't have to worry. I have long wanted to kill that old fart. After I obtain the inheritance, I will personally kill him and refine him into a suicide warrior for you." A high-level supreme deathsworn was definitely tempting enough. The man with the scar had already shown enough sincerity. He believed that if Fang Chen was smart, he would definitely not refuse. However, he had underestimated Fang Chen's determination to protect his hometown. The latter shrugged and said, "But I don't want to share the inheritance with you." The moment these words came out, the man with the scar's expression changed. He said in a deep voice, "Why? You want to keep it for yourself." It wasn't easy for him to use the heavenly saber sovereign to obtain the inheritance. How could he give it to someone else? He had already made a lot of concessions by cooperating with him. It was impossible for him to withdraw completely. Chapter 4074. Monopolize it. The inheritance of this mysterious expert existed within the boundary wall of the Chaos Realm. Needless to say, he was definitely an almighty ancestor of the Chaos Realm. It was only natural for Fang Chen to obtain this inheritance. What was the meaning of monopolizing it? On the other hand, the saber-scarred man had casually barged into the Chaos Realm's realm wall. This was definitely a provocation to the Chaos Realm. When he made his choice, the outcome was already determined. Fang Chen wouldn't let him leave alive. This concerned the fate of the entire Chaos Realm. After all, this was the origin realm after the primordial world shattered. If the experts of the 3,000 great Tao realms knew about this, all living beings in the Chaos Realm would probably die. Boom. Fang Chen didn't waste any time. He continued to increase his strength in his attacks. Terrifying ultimate force spread and surged around him. In a short while, he completely blocked off the saber-scarred man's escape route. At the same time, his shocking attacks followed. One had to know that although the saber-scarred man was a supremacy expert, he had just entered the supremacy realm. Compared to the two people from White Emperor Palace, he was still far inferior. With Fang Chen's current strength, he could completely crush him. Damn it. After an intense battle, the saber-scarred man retreated step by step. He roared angrily and roared into the sky. He fell into a state of madness. His eyes were scarlet as he stared fixedly at Fang Chen. He roared hysterically, "H, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." As soon as he finished speaking, a saber phantom suddenly shot out from the saber-scarred man's body. Following that, he circulated all his strength and injected it into the saber phantom. In the next moment, the saber phantom began to expand. Following that, a deafening roar sounded from within. "Die!" The saber-scarred man laughed maniacally. He was prepared to drag all the living beings in the Chaos Realm to their deaths. However, Fang Chen was already prepared. He pierced through the man's head with his sword. Then, at a speed invisible to the naked eye, he grabbed the expanding saber phantom. With a whoosh, his figure flashed and appeared in the world gap. Boom! Just at this moment, the saber image exploded, causing a huge tremor. On the warship, RDA and the heavenly saber sovereign's expressions changed. The warship shook violently, but it quickly stabilized. The two of them looked out the window and saw a mushroom cloud rising into the sky. However, it was quickly swallowed up by the black hole. "Master!" Ada cried out in surprise and hurriedly contacted Fang Chen. Heavenly Saber King shook his head. "It's useless. My disciple made his saber soul swell and explode. This power is enough to destroy a world. Your master is too weak. Furthermore, he naively believes that the explosion in the world gap won't affect his homeworld. He's too stupid." At this moment, the heavenly saber sovereign's eyes darted around, thinking about how to control the warship and escape from this place. He knew very well what the consequences of such an explosion in the world gap would be. The reason why the world gap was dangerous was because of the omnipresent power of the black hole. Such a powerful explosion could definitely attract a black hole. As long as a black hole arrived, No one could withstand its terrifying power. Fang Chen was no exception. Therefore, in the eyes of the Sky Saber monarch, Fang Chen was already a dead man. No, my master won't die. Ada shook his head in disbelief. The heavenly saber monarch wanted to say something, but before he could say anything, he was stunned. This was because he saw a tall figure appear from the remnant aura of the black hole. How is this possible? The heavenly saber monarch exclaimed, unable to accept the scene before him. How did he resist the devouring of the black hole? Whoosh! The energy fluctuations in Fang Chen's body were huge. The scene just now was too dangerous. Fortunately, he had used the Chaos Realm's heavenly Tao power at the critical moment to barely pull his body back from being devoured by the black hole. At the same time, he sighed. As expected of the former Origin Realm. Even though it was riddled with holes, the power of the heavenly Tao was still unimaginable. If this had happened in another realm, Fang Chen would most likely have met with a disaster. After escaping death, Fang Chen heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he sent a message to Ada, indicating that he was fine. He asked him to speed up the process of erasing the 9-headed snake mark on the warship. As for himself, he returned to the Chaos Realm's realm wall to search for the inheritance of that mysterious expert. At the same time, all the creatures in the Chaos Realm felt a huge impact. All the top experts looked in the direction of the Chaos battlefield. Their faces were solemn, as they thought that an enemy had attacked. What's going on? Could it be that the leader has encountered a great enemy? Should we go and support him? Many people were worried about Fang Chen's safety. Only the great sage was relatively calm. Everyone, don't panic. Although the leader has encountered a little danger, it has been resolved. Hearing this, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Lung Xian frowned slightly, as if she was thinking about something. In front of the Black Palace in the realm wall. When Fang Chen came here again, he felt a solemn murderous aura. Senior, I am from the Chaos Realm. I came here with no evil intentions. I just want to see if you are an almighty from my hometown. If you are, I hope that I can send your remains back to your hometown. When his voice fell, the murderous aura suddenly disappeared and was replaced by a gentle and familiar aura. Seeing this, Fang Chen was overjoyed. Sure enough, this senior was from the Chaos Realm. Creak. The door of the palace opened. A ray of light shone on the ground. Come in. A deep voice came from inside. It seemed to have traveled across the river of time and reached Fang Chen's ears. He stepped into the palace with a flicker. After entering and looking around, Fang Chen discovered that the decoration style of this palace was exactly the same as the human race's holy land, Saint Island. Moreover, there were some murals on the surrounding walls. Upon closer inspection, there was a person on each mural. What surprised Fang Chen was that these people were actually sage almighties of the Chaos Realm. He immediately recognized the one who was in front of him as Supreme Fu Jian. Supreme Fu Jian? The swordsman in the first row on the left had Supreme Fu Jian's mark on him. Besides, Fang Chen had received Supreme Fu Jian's succession before, so no one knew better than him. Meanwhile, he also saw a few other people on the murals. He knew some of them, and some of them were unfamiliar to him. In the end, his gaze landed on the bronze throne at the front. An old man in a black robe was sitting there quietly like a living person. However, Fang Chen knew it was only an illusionary figure. His true self was most likely dead. Not bad, you have the bloodline and aura of the Chaos Realm. The old man in a black robe suddenly said. He would check anyone who came here. Whether they were from the primal Chaos Realm or not, he could see through them with just a glance. It's finally here after waiting for so long. Chapter 4075. In the main hall, Fang Chen could clearly feel the oppression that came from the depths of his bloodline. He could imagine that this mysterious old man was definitely an extremely terrifying cultivator when he was alive. Just the aura he left behind made Fang Chen breathless. He racked his brains but could not think of such a cultivator in the history of the chaotic realm. Could it be? Suddenly, Fang Chen had a bold guess. He raised his head and stared at the black-robed old man with his dark eyes. His heart was in turmoil. Perhaps, this black-robed old man was a prehistoric cultivator. He had learned the great secrets of the chaotic realm from the great sage and the others. Before the primordial world was shattered, this place was called the original realm and was also the core of the entire primordial world. After the original realm was shattered, it evolved into the chaotic realm and was gradually forgotten by the cultivators of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. It even disappeared from people's sight. Generally speaking, for the people of the chaotic realm at this stage, the original realm was the prehistoric era that they spoke of. Thinking of this, Fang Chen's heart raced. He did not dare to imagine. If this person was really a prehistoric cultivator, then how powerful was he at his peak? How did such a powerful person die? How strong was his enemy? A series of doubts made Fang Chen not know what to say for a while. After a long time, a gentle voice woke Fang Chen up. "Elder." Fang Chen hurriedly stepped forward and bowed with cupped fists. He said, "I am from the chaotic realm. May I know your name?" "Ha ha," the black-robed old man looked at Fang Chen with a smile on his face, as if he had seen the person closest to him. "Who am I?" He did not answer Fang Chen's question. Instead, he recalled some things from the past. Back then, the chaotic realm. No, to be exact, it should be the original realm. At that time, the original realm was the core of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Countless top cultivators gathered there. I was one of them, and I was born and raised in the original realm. Fang Chen listened attentively. An hour later, he finally understood the cause and effect. At the same time, he admired the black-robed old man even more. In order to hold on to the last hope of the bloodline of the original realm, he did not hesitate to smelt himself and use his own flesh and blood to nourish the broken heavenly path of the chaotic realm. "Senior," Fang Chen called out. "The origin realm is my hometown. Everyone here is my clansman. I cannot let my clansmen suffer any harm, even if I lose my own life. So, don't grieve for me. I don't care about my own death," the black-robed elder said slowly. Although he did not talk about the original realm in detail, Fang Chen could hear the grandeur and power of the original realm from his words. Deep down, he yearned for an era where 100 schools of thought contended for supremacy. However, soon after, he gathered his thoughts and looked at the black-robed old man again. "Senior, how did others find out about the inheritance you left behind?" Fang Chen asked, puzzled. The broken original realm was completely hidden under the efforts of the black-robed old man and many other cultivators. It disappeared from the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Logically speaking, no one should be able to find this place, let alone the Saber Dao inheritance left behind by the black-robed old man. However, the Heavenly Saber King could find this place. This made Fang Chen very puzzled. "Once, I also traversed the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. I was young and impetuous and made countless enemies. Some of them were very powerful. As long as I left a trace, new clues would be found." The black-robed old man explained, "Perhaps, one of my enemies discovered something but did not dare to come to me. Therefore, they sent a bait to test me." Indeed, according to the black-robed old man, when he was at his peak, it was difficult to find a match for him in the same realm. Those enemies would be terrified when they saw him and would hide, not daring to come out. Even if he had fallen, those enemies would not dare to believe it easily. After all, at their level, it was almost impossible to die. Many people guessed that the black-robed old man was pretending to be dead and deliberately lured them to the point that he sent a bait. Then, Fang Chen was a little worried. If that was the case, would the black-robed old man's enemies invade the chaotic realm if they knew the truth? After all, the current chaotic realm was no longer the original realm. He had cultivated to the 13th level of the Saint realm and was already the strongest in the chaotic realm. If the black-robed old man's enemies invaded, he would not be able to resist at all and could only surrender. "Don't worry, those old farts will not dare to come here easily. Moreover, I have a backup plan. They will not be able to break the boundary wall of the chaotic realm." The black-robed old man seemed to have guessed Fang Chen's thoughts and said with a smile. The backup plan he had set was only for those old farts. As for ordinary supreme realm cultivators, as long as they could find this place, they could enter. This was also a kind of experience for the people of the chaotic realm. If even a supreme realm cultivator could not resist, then what was the point of living? This was also the reason why those from the White Emperor Palace of the White Cloud Realm could easily enter the chaotic realm. Come here and let me take a look. As soon as the black-robed old man's voice fell, a force of attraction suddenly pulled Fang Chen to his side. Then, before the latter could react, his palm was placed on Fang Chen's wrist. Suddenly, a vast and majestic power drilled into Fang Chen's body, making him feel incomparably comfortable. A moment later, the black-robed old man withdrew his finger and sighed. Alas, such a good seedling can't cultivate my sword Dao inheritance. It turned out that the black-robed old man had examined Fang Chen's bloodline and various aspects of his body and finally came to the conclusion that he could not cultivate the sword Dao inheritance. However, you are a rare genius in the sword Dao. Although the person in front of him could not cultivate his sword Dao inheritance, the black-robed old man was still very happy. From now on, you have to do two things, the black-robed old man said. The black-robed old man said, first, you have to find me a successor of the Saber Dao in the chaotic realm as soon as possible and let him inherit my mantle. Only when he completely inherits my mantle will my remaining aura materialize. At that time, it will be able to intimidate those old farts and make them think that I'm still alive. Although the peak experts could not sense the other party's exact location, they could sense the other party's aura through the karma relationship. Second, you go back and take care of the matters at hand. In 100 years, I will send you to a nearby realm to cultivate and train. Hearing this, Fang Chen's body trembled slightly. In the end, he still had to leave the chaotic realm. However, he still yearned for a more powerful stage. After all, the stronger he was, the more he could protect his hometown. After you leave, I will use a heaven-defying method to seal the entire chaotic realm. During this period, even you will not be able to sense the aura of anyone in the chaotic realm. You can go and explore without worry. Chapter 4076. Inside the Black Palace in the chaotic realm's realm wall. The black-robed elder had gradually disappeared, leaving only a wisp of remnant consciousness sleeping on the bronze throne. Although Fang Chen did not obtain the Saber Dao inheritance, it was not as if he did not gain anything. Before the black-robed patriarch fell asleep, he had given him a large amount of cultivation wealth. He had also given him some powerful cultivation techniques. Most importantly, he had given him a supreme-grade battleship. After checking it briefly, Fang Chen put away the supreme-grade battleship and looked at the murals on the wall seriously. Each mural represented a powerhouse of an era, and each powerhouse represented the people of the primal chaos realm. Those who could be engraved on the wall by the black-robed patriarch had made great contributions to the primal chaos realm. Fang Chen strolled around. Besides Supreme Fu Jian, he also knew a few other powerhouses. For example, the experts before the Battle of Godfall in the chaotic realm. After looking at them, he was overwhelmed with emotions. Suddenly, he had a realization and entered seclusion. On the 9-headed snake battleship in the World Gap, the heavenly saber monarch's aura was gradually weakening. He was already seriously injured and had been relying on medicine to maintain his life. However, ever since he was ambushed by his traitorous disciple, his injuries had worsened. He could no longer hold on. How hateful. I, the mighty heavenly saber monarch, am actually going to die in such a desolate place. The heavenly saber monarch roared at the sky, his heart filled with unwillingness. He had once dreamed of roaming the world with his sword and becoming a super expert whose name would shake the world. However, he was going to die just as he had begun. Most importantly, even if he died, no one would know. He was like an inconspicuous splash in the long river of history. It was as if he had never been to this world. Master. At that moment, RDA suddenly sensed Fang Chen's aura and revealed an ecstatic smile. What? The heavenly saber monarch was stunned. Fang Chen had not died under the devouring power of the black hole. This shocked him. How can this be? He's just a saint realm martial artist. How can he resist the devouring power of the black hole? The more heavenly Saber King thought about it, the more shocked he became. In the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao, saints were only considered the most basic cultivators. They couldn't enter the world gap at all. They didn't even have the strength to protect themselves. As for the planet behind Fang Chen, the strongest expert wasn't even a supremacy. One could imagine how weak it was. However, it was unimaginable that such a weak planet could give birth to such a monstrous genius like him. What's going on? He was well aware that even though his wretched disciple had only just reached the utmost exalted realm, when he ignited the energy in his body and formed a resonance with the black hole, that kind of vast power was something that even he, at his peak, wouldn't dare to face head-on. Whoosh! He took a deep breath and stared at the chaos realm with his dark eyes. This planet that seemed to be dying was actually regaining its vitality. Where is this place? The heavenly saber monarch searched through his memories. He had once seen records of the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao in ancient records. However, none of them matched the characteristics of the planet before him. No matter how weak the other realms were, there would still be supremacies. However, there was nothing here. Could it be? Suddenly, a secret that he knew of surfaced in the heavenly saber monarch's mind. He raised his head again and looked at the planet that was faintly glowing with vitality. His heart was in turmoil. Could this be the original realm that the experts of the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao have been searching for all this time? The two words original realm exploded in the heavenly saber monarch's mind. He was completely dazed. Beside him, RDA saw the heavenly saber monarch's abnormality. He controlled the warship's defensive power and completely locked the heavenly saber monarch. You'd better behave yourself. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. At this moment, the heavenly saber monarch was startled awake. He wiped the sweat from his forehead. Afraid that RDA would notice something wrong, he hurriedly said, "I'm just a dying man. What can I do?" After dispelling RDA's doubts, the heavenly saber monarch secretly began to frantically contact his good friends and the powerful factions that were related to him. Wang. Multicolored light shone in the Black Palace. When Fang Chen was cultivating, a special light shot out from every mural. Countless ancient almighties of the primal chaos realm seemed to have sensed that their juniors were cultivating here. They gave a trace of power left in the mural to Fang Chen. When all the different kinds of power entered Fang Chen's body, the 10,000 strands of ultimate power in his body began to circulate crazily. Then, he was shocked to find that the ultimate power was actually merging. Could it be that I'm about to break through? Suddenly, Fang Chen thought of something. The supremacy realm was the so-called returning to one's original state. When everything was cultivated to the extreme, it would return to its original state. As time passed, the ultimate power merged at a speed that was invisible to the naked eye. In the end, it became a thick and solid ultimate power that stayed in his body. At the same time, his bloodline, physical body, and primordial spirit were all undergoing a huge transformation. Fang Chen knew that he had crossed the last threshold. The supremacy realm was beckoning to him. Many thanks, seniors. Fang Chen cupped his fists and thanked them. If it weren't for the help of the ancient almighties on the mural, it would have been very difficult for him to step into the supremacy realm in such a short time. When time stopped at 50 years later, Fang Chen's physical body, primordial spirit, and bloodline had all transformed into a new him. The ultimate power in his body had also nurtured a supremacy seed. The moment he opened his eyes, the world changed colors. His body emitted a vast and mighty power. At the same time, the heavenly Tao power of the primal chaos realm crazily poured into him and completely merged with his primordial spirit. At this moment, he had become one with the heavenly Tao. As long as the primal chaos realm was not destroyed, he would not be destroyed. Buzz. When the supremacy seed in his body gradually stabilized, Fang Chen finally stopped cultivating. Hiss. Feeling the violent power coming from all directions, Fang Chen felt extremely comfortable. Is this the supremacy realm? He muttered to himself. But soon, he realized that something was wrong. He immediately sent a message to Leng Xian and the others, telling them to stay calm and not be agitated. The abnormality of the heavenly Tao in the primal chaos realm was caused by his cultivation. At this moment, many experts gathered in the primal chaos realm, looking forward to it. Ha ha ha, it must be the leader breaking through to the supremacy realm. The supremacy realm, how long has it been since the primal chaos realm appeared? As expected of the leader. Chapter 4077. The black-robed patriarch wanted Fang Chen to do two things. First, help him find a Saber Dao seedling as soon as possible and take over his legacy. Fang Chen guessed that this had something to do with him leaving the chaotic realm. The black-robed patriarch said that he might have to pay a certain price to send him away. After that, his remnant would completely dissipate or fall into a state of death. Therefore, he had to find a successor during this period of time. The second thing was to let Fang Chen handle the matters of the chaotic realm. This was also the most important thing for Fang Chen because he was about to leave the chaotic realm. Moreover, there were many experts in the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao. He still didn't know anything about it. Just an ordinary disciple from the White Cloud realm was already so strong. How strong were the experts of the White Emperor Palace? However, everything was difficult at the beginning. He had suffered a lot since he started cultivating. He had seen many bizarre things. He had long had a new understanding of everything in the world. Only when his strength reached the peak could he protect the people he wanted to protect. This time, leaving the chaotic realm to cultivate in the outer realm could be considered as starting from scratch. However, unlike the past, the environment this time was too harsh. The slightest carelessness could lead to his death. Therefore, he had to be careful. Fortunately, he had obtained a lot of information about the outer realm from RDA and the Heavenly Saber Sovereign. Whoosh! The battleship in the World Gap had been driven to the chaotic battlefield by RDA. As for the Heavenly Saber Sovereign, he was already dead. There was not much value to be gained from him. Moreover, he might leak the location of the chaotic realm. Therefore, he had to be killed. When Fang Chen returned to the chaotic realm, he immediately gathered the experts of the chaotic realm led by Lung Xian. What happened? The fishermen and the others also came out of seclusion one after another. They were all concerned about what had happened and why the leader had gathered all of them. This meeting was of the highest standard in the chaotic realm. Even the experts of the human race's sacred land in the primordial chaos were not qualified to participate. Those who participated in the meeting were at the level of Lung Xian and the great Venerables. Fang Chen made a long story short and told everyone about the black-robed patriarch. The black-robed patriarch? Hearing this, the Great Exalted cried out in alarm. He hadn't expected that the Great Exalted of the primal chaos realm's history to actually exist. Moreover, he had even left behind an inheritance. I've heard of it before, but in our time, everyone thought it was fake and didn't exist. I didn't expect. Lung Xian sighed. Back then, she had explored it with Supreme Fu Jian, but it ended in failure. She didn't expect Fang Chen to find the ruins of the black-robed patriarch. Everyone, from now on, all of you will personally travel to every corner of the Chaos Realm to help the black-robed patriarch find Sword Dao geniuses, Fang Chen said. As for the following period of time, I will hand over all matters to Senior Lung Xian. At that time, after I leave, Senior Lung Xian will be the new leader of the Chaos Realm. All of you must listen to her. Once those words were said, Lung Xian immediately refuted. Supremacy Fu Jian's fate was unknown. She really wanted to leave the Chaos Realm and head to the World Gap to search for the love hidden in her heart. However, Fang Chen was firm and did not allow her to refuse. In the end, she could only agree helplessly. However, Lung Xian's personality was very stubborn. Once she agreed, she would treat it seriously and would not be careless. Leader, please don't worry. From now on, Lung Xian will advance and retreat together with all living beings in the Chaos Realm, Lung Xian said with cupped fists. After handing over the matters, Fang Chen hurriedly returned to the human race's sacred land. The 4 disciples' cultivation progress was good. He used a month to personally teach the 4 disciples. One day, after the 4 disciples finished cultivating, Fang Chen sat on a stone bench and swept his gaze across the 4 of them. Finally, his gaze landed on his eldest disciple, Tian Xin. Tian Xin, as the eldest senior brother, tell me. Tian Xin nodded. He seriously thought about his cultivation in the past month. Then, he said, Master, your teachings during this period of time have enlightened me. Especially in terms of comprehending the origins of the 5 elements, I have a deeper understanding. In the following time, Tianxin spoke a lot. Almost all of it was related to his cultivation. During this time, Fang Chen nodded repeatedly to express his admiration for his eldest disciple. Yes, continue to persevere in your cultivation path. If you can reach the Saint Realm completion in the future, you will definitely be able to step into the Supreme Realm, Fang Chen said. He thought highly of his eldest disciple. Tianxin was brave and resourceful, and his cultivation was different from ordinary people. He often dared to use some methods that ordinary people did not dare to use to cultivate. He did not stick to a pattern. This drive was a bit like when he was young. As for the second disciple, Kang Ju, his personality was the complete opposite of Tianxin. He was more calm and collected. However, the more he was like this, the more stable he was in his cultivation. He did not dare to seek a breakthrough. In the long run, he would lose his spirituality. After instructing Kang Ju, Fang Chen focused on Qin Yu and Lin Zhon. Qin Yu had the bloodline of the ancient super-divine beast, White Tiger. With his help, it had gradually awakened. However, it had not fully awakened because with her current physical strength, it was impossible for her to withstand the full power of the White Tiger bloodline. Qin Yu, your cultivation level has already risen very quickly. Next, you have to pay attention to the situation of the fusion between the White Tiger bloodline and your body, and strengthen the tempering of your body. As he spoke, Fang Chen took out a red pill from his bosom and threw it to Qin Yu. Use this pill when your physical body reaches the extreme realm. At that time, the White Tiger bloodline will be completely activated. After a series of instructions, Qin Yu nodded and listened seriously. After that, it was the fourth disciple, Lin Zhon. To be honest, Lin Zhon's talent was not the best among the four of them. It was only because he had coincidentally obtained the inheritance that he had left behind in the universe. Hence, before Fang Chen left, he was most worried about his fourth disciple. Lin Zhon, continue to cultivate according to my method. You don't have to worry about the trivial matters. Your senior brothers and sisters are here, Fang Chen said. Master, don't worry. With us around, no one will dare to do anything to Junior. Tianxin and the others also patted their chests and guaranteed. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, 60 years had passed. During this period, Fang Chen spent most of his time dealing with the matters of the chaotic realm, accompanying his family and teaching his disciples. One day, Leng Xian and the others sent news that they had searched every corner of the chaotic realm and finally found some good Saber Dao seedlings who had hopes of receiving the inheritance of the Black Robe ancestor. Upon hearing that, Fang Chen's eyes lit up. Had they finally found them? Whoosh! His figure flashed, and in the next moment, he appeared in the chaotic battlefield. Leng Xian and the others had been waiting for a long time. Beside them stood 10 young warriors of different shapes and sizes. It was their first time coming to the chaotic battlefield, and their hearts were filled with respect. Chapter 4078. For more than 60 years, many top experts had spread out to every corner of the chaotic realm, looking for saber seedlings. With their strength, it was too easy for them to see through the essence of a person. Sometimes, they would even use methods to trace back to see if there was any ill-fated relationship between some people and so on. In short, during this period of time, the entire Chaos Realm was very busy. Star and Moon had been in seclusion in the human race's sacred land. She seemed to know that Fang Chen was about to leave, so she was determined to help her husband shoulder the responsibility of protecting the Chaos Realm. As for Fang Chen's children, Fang Shi, Fang Han, and Fang Yun, they disguised themselves and traveled the world. They used the identity of ordinary people to experience the world of mortals and seek breakthroughs in the martial path. The 5 hegemons of Jade Mountain focused all their energy on their precious disciple. Luo Xiao did not disappoint them. He completely inherited their legacy and even gave off a feeling that he had surpassed them. This made the 5 hegemons of Jade Mountain even more excited. While teaching Luo Xiao, they were also constantly researching the fusion technique. They were almost obsessed with it. Apart from that, the Chaos Realm was calm. Fang Chen had also set up a heaven refining array at the Chaos Battlefield's realm barrier. Even if someone trespassed, they might not be able to enter. The only thing he was worried about was Heavenly Saber King. After all, this old fellow was a veteran expert who had roamed the world gap for countless years. Furthermore, he was a member of the Hydra organization. If he could find the black-robed patriarch's Saber Dao legacy, did that mean that others could find it as well? Although Fang Chen had killed Heavenly Saber King immediately after obtaining the items left behind by the black-robed patriarch, he still felt that something was amiss. However, there was no other way. He could only hope that Heavenly Saber King did not discover that this was the original realm. However, in fact, before Heavenly Saber King died, he had a sudden realization that the Chaos Realm was very extraordinary. It was very likely that it was the original realm. He immediately contacted his good friends secretly. At the same time, in various parts of the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao, some lone experts and sect factions were shocked. However, they appeared abnormally calm on the surface. The news that Heavenly Saber King sent back stirred up a storm in a small circle. Those who knew the inside story were dumbfounded. Even some top experts were asking for more detailed information. It was a pity. The news that the Heavenly Saber Sovereign sent back was intermittent. He only said that he discovered the origin realm but did not specify its exact location. However, this did not stop the determination of many cultivators to search for the original realm. They began to investigate everything that had happened to the Heavenly Saber King when he was alive, as well as the people he had interacted with. They wanted to find some clues from his movements. That was it. Undercurrents were surging. The primal chaos realm was facing an unprecedented crisis, but no one was aware of it. Of course, this was a story for another time. 60 years after discovering the inheritance left behind by the prehistoric powerhouse, the black-robed old man, Leng Xian, and the rest finally searched through the entire chaos realm. In the end, they selected 10 of the most outstanding Sword Dao youths. They had one thing in common, and that was their youth. After all, youth was capital. Only when one was young could one be qualified to pursue a higher level of martial arts. Moreover, the younger one was, the more it could prove how powerful their potential was. In the primal chaos battlefield, Leng Xian and the others stood side by side. Behind them, 10 young people stood quietly. Their faces were different. Some of them were nervous, some of them were excited, and some of them were frowning. Anyway, they had cultivated for many years and had never seen such a big lineup. At the same time, they were very curious. Why did these cultivators bring them here? Rumble. Just as everyone was making wild guesses, a deafening roar suddenly erupted in the primal chaos battlefield. Immediately after, a black figure floated in. The 10 of them widened their eyes. They could not believe what they were seeing. They could clearly see him in front of them, but they could not sense him. The crowd's hearts were in turmoil. However, the scene that followed caused them to be even more dumbstruck. Greetings, Lord Leader. The cultivators led by Leng Xian cupped their fists and greeted him. This scene deeply struck the hearts of the 10 young people. They suddenly realized that the unfathomable man in front of them was the legendary realm lord of the primal chaos realm, the Lord Leader of the human race. Greetings. Lord Leader. No one knew who spoke first, but the others followed in a daze. The 10 of them are considered the strongest Sword Dao seedlings in the primal chaos realm. Leng Xian made a long story short and introduced the 10 young people. They came from different regions, but their Sword Dao talent was outstanding. Lord Leader, take a look and see if there are any suitable ones. The great sage said with a smile. The Sword Dao inheritance of the black-robed ancestor would certainly be able to create an expert. At that time, the primal chaos realm would be strengthened again. As a part of the primal chaos realm, the great sage was naturally very happy. The others were also the same. A prehistoric expert like the black-robed ancestor had left behind an inheritance. It was simply a shocking treasure. The 10 of you, talk about your understanding of the Sword Dao, Fang Chen said. Although he majored in the Sword Dao, the Great Dao was simple. In the end, it was almost the same, so he had a certain level of attainment in the Sword Dao. Lord Leader, in the beginning, these young people were still a little reserved, but as they talked more about the Sword Dao, they spoke freely and described a blueprint of their own. 1, 2, 3, a few hours later, the 10 young people had all finished speaking. Fang Chen's gaze swept across the crowd, and he nodded with satisfaction. Their talent in the sword Dao was indeed very strong. What's your name? In the end, Fang Chen's gaze fell on a thin young man. He was the most inconspicuous of the 10 martial artists. His brilliance was completely overshadowed by the other 9 people, and he was the one who was least likely to be chosen. However, Fang Chen was very interested in him. Lord Leader, I am from Hongyu Universe, and my name is Hong Feng. The thin man said a little cautiously. He did not expect that the high and mighty Lord Leader would take the initiative to ask for his name. The other 9 people were also a little stunned when they saw this, but they did not dare to say anything. Well, from now on, you are the successor of the black-robed ancestor. I will help you to receive the black-robed ancestor's sword Dao inheritance. Fang Chen made a decision. Hearing this, Lung Xian and the others did not say anything. They believed in the Lord Leader's vision. However, the other 9 people's faces were obviously a little unconvinced. After all, this was an opportunity to rise to the top in a single bound, but it slipped away under their noses. Don't be unconvinced. Although he is not as good as the 9 of you now, in the future, his achievements will not be less than the sum of the 9 of you. Fang Chen's words were full of majesty. Chapter 4079. To see a person's potential, one should not look at the present, but at a deeper level. The other 9 people felt that it was unfair because they thought that their strength was much stronger than Hong Feng's. Why should he be chosen? The reason was that they only looked at the surface and did not see the deeper level. But Fang Chen was different. He was the realm lord of the Chaos Realm and the well-deserved leader of the human race. Even an ancient expert like Lung Xian respected him, let alone others. In Fang Chen's view, everything about Hong Feng met the criteria for him to choose the successor of the Black Robe ancestor. As for the other 9 people, they were also very outstanding. After all, they were selected from the entire Chaos Realm. However, his ideal choice was still Hong Feng. As for the others, he did not need to explain. Time would explain everything. Obviously, Hong Feng did not expect that he would be chosen. He was so excited that he stuttered a little. Well, this selection is over. Fang Chen looked down at the crowd, exuding a powerful majesty that made the 10 people a little breathless. After Hong Feng receives the inheritance of the Black Robe ancestor, he will definitely become the leader of the human race in the future. As for the 9 of you, you can choose to support him or refuse. Their choice was up to them. Fang Chen would not interfere. Soon, the 9 people made a decision. Although they were not convinced, they still believed in the leader and chose to support Hong Feng. In this regard, Fang Chen nodded in satisfaction. Then, he brought Hong Feng to the place of inheritance of the Black Robe ancestor in the realm wall space. Buzz. Hong Feng naturally received the approval of the Black Robe ancestor and began to accept the inheritance. During this period, Fang Chen also gave him a lot of help. Until 40 years later, Hong Feng had completely accepted the Black Robe ancestor's inheritance and had already comprehended a small part of it. His strength had improved by leaps and bounds and had reached an extremely high level. After checking, Fang Chen was very satisfied with his growth. Now, you are considered the disciple of the Black Robe ancestor. From now on, your task is to protect the Chaos Realm, Fang Chen said. Hong Feng nodded. After the baptism of time, he had become more profound and restrained. His body exuded a faintly discernible terrifying blade qi. Many thanks, Lord Leader. Hong Feng cupped his fists together in thanks. In my life, I, Hong Feng, am someone from the Chaos world. Even if I die, I will not allow an outside force to invade. Seeing Hong Feng's attitude, Fang Chen grinned and said, "Let's go. It's been more than 40 years. We can go back now." Chaos Battlefield. Lung Xian and the others arrived with the 9 people from before. Lord Leader, did everything go well? Fang Chen nodded. Everything went well. Then, he signaled for Hong Feng to step forward and challenge the other 9 people. I know the 9 of you aren't convinced why the Chancellor chose me back then. But now, I'll give you a chance. All 9 of you, come at me together. If he wanted to gain the recognition of others, he could only speak with his fists. Therefore, Hong Feng wanted to use this opportunity to prove that the leader's choice back then was not wrong. Secondly, he wanted to prove that he was fully capable of being the leader of the 9. All right, then we won't stand on ceremony. The 9 of them looked at each other and then attacked together. Rumble. In the primal chaos battlefield, saber light filled the air, dazzling everyone's eyes. And Fang Chen, Lung Xian, and the others were slowly admiring it. Is this the black-robed ancestors' saber technique? The supreme sage exclaimed. Even though he was experienced and knowledgeable, he was still shocked to see the black-robed ancestors' inheritance reappear in the world. As expected of a prehistoric powerhouse. The black-robed ancestors' understanding of saber Dao has probably reached the pinnacle. Lung Xian said. Back then, Supreme Sage Fu Jian was known to be invincible in sword Dao, but Lung Xian felt that his understanding of saber Dao was not as deep as the black-robed ancestors. This was the gap. Between experts, the slightest difference could lead to 1,000 miles of difference. It could only be said that the black-robed ancestor was too strong. He was once an original realm powerhouse and was also known as a prehistoric powerhouse in the primal chaos realm. No matter from which aspect, his strength was undeniable. After a long while, Hong Feng and the others' battle ended. The 9 of them bowed their heads and the atmosphere was a little gloomy. Only Hong Feng held his head high. After 40 years of cultivation, he did not embarrass the black-robed ancestor. In the battle of Saber Dao, he fought 1 against 9. This was just the beginning. His goal was to become a pinnacle powerhouse like the black-robed ancestor. Are you convinced now? Fang Chen asked with a smile. Lord Leader, we were wrong before. From now on, we will wholeheartedly assist Boss Hong Feng. The leader said. Fang Chen smiled. His smile was brilliant. It was as if he had seen the arrival of an unprecedented golden age. The matter of choosing a successor for the black-robed ancestor had come to an end. It took a total of 100 years. He had basically handed over the matters at hand, and he also wholeheartedly guided his disciples, as well as his sons and daughters in cultivation. The only ones who felt a little sorry were Star and Moon, as well as his 2 former confidants. Well, before I leave, I'll go and say goodbye. Fang Chen sighed. Immediately, his figure flashed and appeared on a nameless island. He stood above the island and looked down. This island was very unique. It was surrounded by a very powerful formation. Ordinary people could not set foot on the island at all. In the middle of the island, there was a palace. In the palace, a person in a green dress sat. She was Bai Qingqing. Suddenly, Bai Qingqing sensed something. She raised her head and looked at Fang Chen across the air. Her eyes were filled with tears. I'm leaving. After a long period of silence, Lu Chen finally spoke. Wherever you are, my heart will be there. Bai Qingqing said. Everything was said without words. Later, Lu Chen said goodbye to Princess Xin in the same way. Although the 2 girls were reluctant, they still chose to respect Fang Chen's decision. After all, they were not his wives and did not want to interfere too much in his life. Back then, Fang Chen asked them to live in the Saint Island, but they refused. Now, they were living a carefree life. They could do what they wanted. The only regret was that they had missed each other for too long. On the chaotic battlefield, RDA controlled Tiandao Sovereign's battleship and was ready to set off. Fang Chen turned his head and looked. Led by Lung Xian and the others, almost all the human experts had come to send him off. Boss, wait for us. The 5 tyrants of Mount Cheung no longer laughed as before. They said solemnly. Tian Xin, Kang Ju, Qin Yu, and Lin Zhon also said goodbye to their master reluctantly. Fang Shi, Fang Han, Fang Yun, and their mother, Star and Moon, stood at the back quietly, watching their father leave. The moment he disappeared, everyone, including his former brothers, had the same thought in their minds. Fang Chen's name would definitely be engraved in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Chapter 4080. How big was the universe? How long was the river of time and space? How spectacular was the primordial world? In the past, these questions were illusory to Fang Chen. Now, he was pursuing his martial Dao dream step by step. The person who had set out from the ancient Sword Continent's divine Wind Nation, blazing his way through all obstacles to finally reach the pinnacle of the Primal Chaos Realm and become the leader of the Primal Chaos Realm, the ruler of a Primal Chaos Realm. However, Fang Chen wasn't happy. The martial path he pursued had yet to reach the pinnacle. The primordial world shattered and evolved into the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao. The Chaos Realm was only one of them, but this realm was too special. It was evolved from the core of the primordial world and was called the Origin Realm. The more he learned about these secrets, the heavier Fang Chen's heart became. It was not easy for him to destroy the Origin Realm, slaughter the devouring fiend clan, and come into contact with the crisis of the Chaos Realm. However, the responsibility on his shoulders was now heavier. He did not know what he would become in the future. Would he return home in glory or be buried in a nameless place? Even though the future was dark, he had no regrets because he wanted to protect the pure land in his heart. That was his hometown and the place he cared about the most. After arranging the matters in the Chaos Realm, Fang Chen left on a battleship. In the vast world gap, through the battleship's window, one could see terrifying black holes devouring some species at any time. They did not even have the chance to resist. After an unknown period of time, Fang Chen finally saw a Hydra battleship across endless space-time. They should also be interstellar pirates. However, before he could see it clearly, the huge battleship was swallowed by the black hole that suddenly appeared. Nothing was left. This scene was extremely shocking. Fang Chen was unable to recover from his shock for a long time. Although he had seen the power of the black hole devouring everything with his own eyes, the scene in front of him was even more shocking. He hurriedly turned around and looked at Rda. The latter was extremely calm. He explained to Fang Chen, "Master, don't worry. That Hydra battleship seems to be very close to us, but it's actually very far away. Even if we travel at full speed, we might not be able to reach it in 100 years. Therefore, there's no need to worry about the devouring power of the black hole." The world gap was caused by the shattering of the primordial world. The 3,000 realms of the Great Tao were within it. It was extremely vast and boundless. What one could see might not be what was in front of one's eyes. "How long have we been traveling?" Fang Chen asked after he heaved a sigh of relief. "We've been traveling for 100 years, said Rda. For 100 years, they did not see any life-bearing planets. There was only a boundless grey space-time. Such days were torturous, but fortunately, Fang Chen was already used to it. He sat cross-legged in the battleship, cultivating as he traveled. Rda seemed to have thought of a legend. Could it be that Master wants to fuse the 5 elemental origins into his primordial spirit? After the primordial spirit reached the Emperor realm, it was infinitely close to the immortal realm. At this time, it was extremely difficult to improve the strength of the primordial spirit. However, there was no lack of adventurers in the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao. They experienced thousands of failures and finally came up with a very risky method. The slightest bit of carelessness in this method would result in death. Furthermore, the success rate was extremely low. Only those extremely rare geniuses would have a chance of succeeding. Therefore, this method was called a forbidden method. Very few people dared to use it. A long time ago, as an interstellar bandit, Rda had only heard of it. He didn't expect to see it with his own eyes today. Buzz. The process of fusing the 5 elemental origins with the Emperor Realm primordial spirit seemed simple, but it was actually very dangerous. However, all of this was within Fang Chen's calculations. After years of cultivation, he had completely understood the characteristics of the 5 elemental origins. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the 5 elemental origins had completely fused with the Emperor Realm primordial spirit. At this time, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled above the battleship as if a heavenly tribulation was about to descend. However, this kind of weather only lasted for a quarter of an hour. Rda breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Fang Chen in shock. "Master, you..." Fang Chen exhaled a mouthful of turbid qi. His hanging heart was relieved. If his primordial spirit had been slightly lacking in the past, then now, it could be said that he had truly attained a higher level of mastery. He was still a low-level supreme master in martial arts, but his cultivation of soul arts had reached the mid-level or even higher. Buzz. Fang Chen moved his mind. The terrifying power of soul arts spread out. RDA knelt on the ground with a plop. His whole body trembled and his heart was filled with fear. Was this the forbidden power? Wasn't it too terrifying? Whoosh. After feeling the strength of his primordial spirit, Fang Chen withdrew his aura in time. The battleship returned to normal. RDA's body was still trembling. Fang Chen's face was full of smiles. He was very satisfied with this closed-door cultivation. No wonder so many people want to become the lord of a realm and merge with the will of the heavenly way. Fang Chen muttered to himself. He learned from the great sage that in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, there were many experts who specialized in hunting down realm lords in order to become the lord of a realm. Now he finally understood that to become the lord of a realm, he could absorb the great fortune of this realm and nurture his primordial spirit with the help of the will of the heavenly way. This was also the reason why he could fuse the 5 elemental origins with his primordial spirit so easily. Come to think of it, the realm lords of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path were not easy to deal with. Whoosh. Fang Chen gradually collected his thoughts. His expression also turned grave. He needed to hide his identity. He absolutely could not be discovered by others. Otherwise, he would end up attracting a fatal disaster. Buzz. At this moment, a blinding white light shot toward them. Fang Chen and RDA raised their heads and saw a planet of life in the distance. It was faintly discernible. That's a planet of life, RDA shouted excitedly. After more than 130 years of sailing, the battleship's performance had decreased a lot. It urgently needed to go to a planet of life to replenish. This was great news. Do you know which realm is in front of us? Fang Chen asked. RDA shook his head. He had come to the edge of the chaotic realm in a daze. He knew very little about the planets of life in the world gap. Let's go. This is our first stop. Before the remnant consciousness of the black-robed ancestor dissipated, he had given Fang Chen a mark. If he left the chaotic realm and went to the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, he could go to a realm called the 9 Heavens to find a peerless expert. According to Fang Chen's memories, the black-robed ancestor had said that the 9 Heavens realm was not too far from the chaotic realm. He had been there before. As long as he was close to the 9 Heavens realm, the mark would flash. I wonder if it's the 9 Heavens realm, Fang Chen thought to himself. RDA drove the battleship. After 10 years, they finally arrived at the planet of life. Chapter 4081. The primordial world shattered and transformed into countless fragments. The world gap gradually took shape. Then, the fragments transformed into the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao. The Chaos Realm was also one of the realms. However, it was the most special one. Moreover, it was the core of the entire primordial world. It was once known as the Origin Realm. As time passed, generation after generation of experts died. Coupled with the terrifying tearing power of the world gap, the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao rarely interacted with each other. After countless years, cultivators became stronger and stronger. More and more unknown world gaps were explored. Gradually, the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao began to interact with each other. There were even experts training everywhere. The appearance of the Hydra organization, the interstellar battleships, and so on meant that cultivators were gradually conquering the world gap. However, as people's pursuit of power became more and more intense, their desire for the Origin Realm also reached an unprecedented intensity. However, the Origin Realm had disappeared into the world gap. No matter how many generations of experts searched for it, they all ended in failure. Although before Fang Chen, there were also experts from the Chaos Realm who left to train in the world gap, most of them died. As the controller of the Chaos Realm of this era, Fang Chen personally led the human army to defeat the Fiend Devourer clan of the Origin Realm. From then on, the declining Chaos Realm gradually developed. However, this was far from enough. He wanted to become stronger. At least, before the experts of the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao discovered the Origin Realm, he wanted to increase his strength so that he could protect himself and even protect the Origin Realm. However, this was too difficult for Fang Chen. Therefore, he resolutely left the Chaos Realm and headed to the World Gap. Swoosh! In the endless darkness of the World Gap, a beam of light suddenly illuminated the entire battleship. Fang Chen suddenly opened his eyes and stopped cultivating. He stood on the deck and looked into the distance. At that moment, RDA walked out of the cockpit excitedly and said, "Master, we have arrived at the planet of life." After leaving the Chaos Realm and drifting for more than 100 years, they finally saw a planet of life. The two of them planned to set foot on this planet and use it as a springboard to gain a deeper understanding of the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao. After all, Fang Chen's current realm was only at the initial stage of the Supremacy Realm. Although he could retreat unscathed against mid-stage and high-level supremacies, this was still the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao. Who knew what kind of top experts would appear? Therefore, it was better to be careful. Rumble. In front of the life planet, there was an illusory layer of clouds. Sometimes, some people could be seen above the clouds. Suddenly, a deafening explosion arose, which attracted people's attention. Whose warship is that? Hydra. Many people were discussing whose battleship it was. After all, the roaming dragon world was too remote, and there were very few outsiders. Even if there were, it would be a passing Hydra battleship. However, they did not find the Hydra mark on the warship, so they were even more curious. Fang Chen naturally noticed the experts in the clouds. Their auras were very strong. Roughly estimating, there were many Supremes, but there were also some Sage Realm martial artists. He was a little curious as to why a Saint Realm warrior dared to leave the vital planet and appear in the clouds. Although the clouds surrounded the planet, they were still part of the World Gap. Normally speaking, the terrifying pulling force could tear them apart. Master, there are many races in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Among them, there are many special races. Their flesh and blood are extremely special and can withstand the terrifying power of the clouds. RDA gave a simple explanation, and Fang Chen understood. Speed up and enter the city. Fang Chen ordered. Ada immediately controlled the battleship to pass through the clouds and enter the roaming dragon world. In the clouds, many people's expressions changed greatly. Something big is going to happen in the roaming dragon world. The roaming dragon world was the most remote world in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. It was Fang Chen's first stop in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. The martial arts civilization here was not very prosperous. According to Ada, 10 roaming dragon worlds were not as good as one White Cloud world. The White Emperor Palace in the White Cloud world was the absolute dominant force. It even had subordinate worlds like the roaming dragon world. Crack! Thunder flashed above the battleship. It swooped down and collided with the battleship. Ada controlled the battleship to land on the ground. Splash! Fang Chen and Ada left the battleship and put it away. Then they looked up at the sky. At this time, the sky was covered with dark clouds and thunder flashed. It was as if someone was going through a tribulation. It was very terrifying. Even Fang Chen's blood was restless. "Master, look!" RDA suddenly exclaimed. Fang Chen followed RDA's finger and looked under the dark clouds. He suddenly saw a man in purple clothes holding a saber, resisting the sky thunder with his saber. The power of the heavenly thunder should be comparable to the Supreme Realm. This man in purple obviously has not stepped into the Supreme Realm, but he can resist the purple heavenly thunder. Fang Chen touched his chin. He did not expect to see someone going through a tribulation as soon as he arrived in the roaming dragon world. He should have cultivated a special method. Just as Fang Chen was deep in thought, the purple heavenly lightning suddenly exploded. Immediately after, it transformed into a purple flame. The instant he saw the purple flame, the unmoving purple-clothed man's pupils shrank. His body could not help but tremble. But soon, he calmed down and activated all his strength to resist the purple flame. Damn it, why did I encounter the purple fire heavenly thunder? The man in purple cursed. Not far away. Fang Chen felt that the purple flame was dangerous to the man in purple, so he decided to take action. Rumble. A deafening sound resounded through the sky. The saber in the man's hand had been burned by the purple flame and showed signs of breaking. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of the man's mouth. His internal organs had been damaged and his vitality was declining rapidly. If this went on, he would definitely be completely killed by the purple flame. I can't accept this. The man in purple roared to the sky. After cultivating for so many years, it was not easy for him to reach the supreme realm. But he was going to fail. Crack. Another loud sound was heard. The purple flame completely destroyed the saber in the man's hand and was about to swallow him. At this moment, a strange scene appeared. The violet-robed man felt as if he were in a dream. He couldn't believe his eyes. He saw a large hand grab the violet flame with lightning speed. Then, he discovered that his body was constantly being pushed back. Moreover, his life force was rapidly recovering. What's going on? The man in purple was shocked to the extreme. That was the purple fire heavenly thunder. Someone dared to take it with his bare hands. Did he want to die? Chapter 4082. The world fell silent and returned to nature. Only the man in purple was dumbfounded. He had received a strong visual impact and could not believe what he had seen. The heavenly thunder of purple flame was a very, very dangerous heavenly thunder of the heavenly tribulation. However, this tall figure in front of him had actually taken it with his bare hands. In his impression, even the strongest in the clan would not dare to do this. Who was this person? Suddenly, a gust of wind blew across the purple-robed man's face, startling him awake. He shook his head forcefully and looked at Fang Chen again. He discovered that it was not an illusion, but something that had actually happened. He could not care less. He hurriedly adjusted the strength in his body and thanked Fang Chen repeatedly. Junior Ziyu greets Senior. Thank you for saving my life. The man in purple was called Ziyu. His family was considered an overlord nearby. He was a third-generation disciple. Fang Chen turned and glanced at Ziyu. He felt that the chaotic aura in Ziyu's body had gradually calmed down. He said, "You're too anxious." He could see at a glance that Ziyu had great potential and outstanding talent. However, he had forced himself to break through to the supreme realm before reaching the peak of his cultivation. This caused the heavenly thunder of purple flame to descend. If he had not happened to pass by, Ziyu would have been a pile of bones. As long as you accumulate for a few more years, you will definitely be able to easily step into the supreme realm. You might even be able to break through to the mid-level supreme realm, Fang Chen said. Ziyu lowered his head in shame and said somewhat sadly, "Senior, I understand what you're saying, but time waits for no one. My position in the clan is especially awkward. If I don't break through soon, I might even run the risk of being chased out of the clan." Kicked out of the family? Fang Chen was puzzled. He said, "Tell me about your family." Although his goal was the Nine Heavens realm, he had just left the chaotic realm and traveled through the gap of worlds. With his strength, it was difficult to go to the Nine Heavens realm. Therefore, he could only use the Wandering Dragon realm as a springboard to start a new journey. Moreover, he would definitely not leave in a short time. Therefore, he wanted to understand the division of forces in the Wandering Dragon realm. This would be beneficial for his future cultivation. "Senior, my family is the Zilong family. It belongs to the Zilong region," Ziyu spoke with assurance, telling Fang Chen about his family and most of the situation in the Wandering Dragon realm. 6 hours later, Fang Chen finally had a preliminary understanding of the division of forces in the Wandering Dragon world. He learned from Ziyu that the cultivation resources in the Wandering Dragon world were extremely scarce, so the major forces often fought over cultivation resources. The roaming dragon world was divided into 8 regions and each region was named after a dragon. For example, the Zilong region where the Zilong family was located was one of the 8 regions. The Zilong region was located at the most remote edge of the Zilong region. It was closest to the world gap. The cultivation conditions here were extremely harsh. Many people had no choice but to forcefully enter the world gap. There was only one outcome, tragic death. When Fang Chen had entered the roaming dragon world on the battleship, he had discovered that there were many cultivators in the clouds. He guessed that they were from the Zilong region. Named after the purple dragon, your purple dragon family should be very strong in the purple dragon region, right? It should be an overlord-level faction. Why would such a top faction lack cultivation resources? Ziyu smiled bitterly. Senior, you might not know this, but the factions of the various regions have to pay tribute to the Golden Dragon Palace in the Golden Dragon region every year. Those who don't pay tribute or those who lack resources will be punished violently. The Black Dragon family of the Black Dragon region is an example. They used to be very powerful a long time ago, but after being punished by the Golden Dragon Palace, they gradually declined. Now, they are at the bottom of the 8 regions. Fang Chen sighed. Cultivation was really cruel. He thought that the cultivation environment in the Chaos Realm was already very bad compared to the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao. Who would have thought that the Wandering Dragon Realm was just as bad? However, the difference was that the Wandering Dragon Realm had a foundation and many experts. Unlike the Chaos Realm, they had a complete heavenly Tao. Although it was difficult to break through to the Supremacy Realm, it was still possible. Even for large families, the Supremacy Realm was only the basic threshold. It was very difficult to obtain cultivation resources below the Supremacy Realm. Whoosh. Collecting his thoughts, Fang Chen took a deep breath and looked at Ziyu. I'm traveling in the World Gap and accidentally entered the Wandering Dragon Realm. I don't have anywhere to go for the time being. If you don't mind, can I visit your family? Fang Chen asked. He decided to stay in the Wandering Dragon Realm for a short time for 2 purposes. First, he wanted to understand some secrets of the 3,000 realms of the Great Tao. Second, he wanted to use this time to constantly improve his strength. Only by becoming stronger could he protect himself. And the Wandering Dragon Realm was just right for him to hone his skills. Senior, if you want to visit my Purple Dragon family, I can't ask for more, Ziyu said excitedly. If the Zilong family could rope Fang Chen in, his position in the family would rise steadily. Moreover, Lin Fan was his savior who helped him step into the Supremacy Realm. This favor must be repaid. Most importantly, Ziyu was really shocked by Fang Chen catching the purple flame heavenly thunder with his bare hands. He firmly believed that Fang Chen should be comparable to the Patriarch, or even stronger than the Purple Dragon Region Lord. If he brought such a big shot to the family would definitely reward him. Fang Chen sent a message to RDA, asking him to find a place to hide and gather information, and to listen to his orders at any time. He followed Ziyu to the Purple Dragon family. On the same day, a shocking news came out of the Wandering Dragon Realm. An expert had arrived in the Wandering Dragon Realm, and it was suspected that the inheritance of an unparalleled expert had appeared, causing a great commotion. Even the forces of the 8 regions were inquiring about the news. However, no one knew that the expert who was regarded as an outsider had quietly followed Ziyu to the Purple Dragon family. There are a total of 5 major forces in the Zilong region. In the past, our Purple Dragon family was the leader, but in the past 100 years, the Moke family has been expanding with the support of the Golden Dragon Palace. They have been secretly targeting our Purple Dragon family. Along the way, Ziyu explained the current situation of the Purple Dragon family to Fang Chen in detail. No wonder. After listening, Fang Chen understood. No wonder the Purple Dragon family was so short of cultivation resources that they would be expelled if they did not step into the Supremacy Realm. It turned out that their situation was not optimistic. On the other hand, Ziyu looked at the latter in surprise. He did not expect that this ordinary-looking guy was the son of the previous patriarch. After his father died in battle, their bloodline lost power and became what it was now. Purple Dragon bloodline? He was a little curious about the bloodlines of the Wandering Dragon Realm. There were 8 extremely special bloodlines in the 8 regions. By combining the 8 bloodlines and the bloodline of the Golden Dragon Palace, it was possible to give birth to a Dragon Emperor. However, for countless years, almost no one had succeeded.